Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to SkepTalk. We are on the line. The phone lines are open. October 14th, 2024. What skeptical things could we possibly talk about? Let us know by calling in and challenging the two hosts for tonight. I'm Aron. I've been on here a few times before. And of course, Paul, the most famous Paul of all, that writer from 2,000 years ago got nothing.
The Paul. I haven't gone by that moniker since I was in the church. I used to be the Paul over there, and that was also the joke. But I love it. Let's go with that.
All right, how you doing tonight?
I am doing okay, and happy Thanksgiving to all my Canadian brothers and sisters and other. It's Canadian Thanksgiving today, so everyone around here is full of turkey and pie. And thankful for so many things, including thankful for all of you who have joined us.
Well, unfortunately, in real America, it's not Thanksgiving yet.
No. So I lived in California for quite a while, and I will grant that what we celebrate up here is Thanksgiving Junior for sure. We don't have quite I was unprepared when I moved to the States for how big a deal Thanksgiving is. So it's almost as big as your Christmas in a lot of ways, which I envy. I miss.
Oh yes, the power of Christmas. It's become quite the international export. I have seen it in places you wouldn't expect it to be very big and popular, artificial but very popular.
You mean Thanksgiving or Christmas?
Christmas.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Years ago, I was in Beijing, and they just have these gigantic artificial trees out there, and it's like, this is not an indigenous holiday, but all right.
Well, stores got to stay open somehow.
Oh yes. All right, so for those of you who might be new here on SkepTalk, this is a call-in show. We got the phone number down below, 720-619-2288, or use the link in the bottom to call us in through web sources. So this, of course, is one of many shows here on the line. And tonight it's Paul and I, but tomorrow night it's Chewed Gum with Eve Was Framed and Alyssa Ljub. On Wednesday, my apologies, we got the Hang Up with Matt Dillahunty and Jimmy Snow. Thursday is the Transatlantic Call-In Show. That's going to be with Ben and Josie. Thursday and Friday, we also got a relatively new show, because I Wanna is the name. So on Thursday, we got Forrest and Morgan, and on Friday, it's Matt. Come Sunday, we got two shows. Sunday is very full. We got the Sunday show with Matt and this Paul guy I think I might have mentioned earlier. And we also have the late night Sunday show with Forrest and Eve Was Framed. That's all coming up in the next week. So tonight we got some callers already in queue. Paul, anything coming up with you before we hop to our first call?
No, I think I'm on my channel. I seem to be flip-flopping this year back and forth between young Earth creationism and resurrection research. So I did my month of young Earth creationism, and now I'm excited. I recently interacted with Dr. Gary Habermas, and I'm going to be reviewing that. So look for that on my channel this week.
Fascinating. All right. Now we just need to find a way of mixing the two. Young resurrectionism?
That's right, yeah. 6-day resurrection or something, yeah.
It only happened 6,000 hours ago.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. How about you? Have anything exciting going on?
Let's see here. Well, of course, we're in the good old US of A here, so today is either Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day. What which one you want to celebrate is going to depend on a lot of facets. It is worth noting here that there's been a mixed message here for, you're in the Boston area. There is a Columbus Circle, and there's a statue of Columbus, and several years ago, someone decided the head should be removed. It's been repaired since, but as you can imagine, there is some contentions about Mr. Columbus and his side effects, to put it very mildly.
Was that before or after The Simpsons did the statue beheading?
I'm going to say after, because I think it was during 2020, and as best I can remember, that opening to The Simpsons is before that.
Absolutely. So another way The Simpsons was prophetic.
Oh, yes. Well, I have not seen what The Simpsons are predicting for what's coming up in this country in about a month. I'm a little bit afraid to find out.
Your season finale of America coming up. Yeah.
I would rather not call it that.
It's fun to watch from external. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, come our next election and our country looks so amazing, it's just going to become so great. Everyone from Canada is going to be like, we want in on that. We're coming.
That's probably, yeah. Close one border and open the other.
All right.
All right.
How about we open up for our first call of the night? In that case, we got K, he, him from Arizona. Wants to talk about, is materialism or naturalism not fundamentally real? So, K, can you hear us? K, are you there? Either we're having audio problems or connection problems. I can't say which. Kay, make sure you're not muted yourself. I don't believe there's anything here muting you.
I was curious to find out what that question meant.
Yeah. I also know, Kay, you're on the web system, and I think you have to do something special to get yourself off mute. I can't remember the details.
Okay, your phone's probably asleep. Just all you have to do is shut it off and turn it, or just tap it to wake it up.
Thank you. That was the voice of our producer, Morgan, who is here to make sure that I screw up minimally. I'm still going to screw up, but just less. So, Kay, tap your phone. That'll wake it up, and we should be able to hear you then. Kay, can you hear us? Ah, shoot. Going once, going twice. Okay. Looks like
I returned him to the
return K to the queue, maybe.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm sorry. I tried to not say okay over and over again, given his name. I will do better.
All right.
Fun fact. Okay, apparently is of Bostonian origin. And
really?
It was short for all correct, but apparently the pastime of the 17th, 18th century was, let's purposely misspell words just to be cool. Just like spelling cool with a K is cool. This apparently was a hot thing in the Boston area at that time, and so when they were saying everything was all correct, that would be written as okay.
So oil correct, or some kind of.
It makes sense when you're at Harvard Yard down by the harbor. That's my best Boston accent, and I won't try anymore because I don't want to have.
Well done, much better than mine.
I don't want to be thrown in the sea along with that tea from a few years ago. All right, but that's just a fun little fact. Okay, so K is not likely to connect, at least not in the very near future, but we do have another person queued up. So, from the Philippines, we have Dennis, pronouns he, him. Dennis is an atheist and wants to ask how we respond to theists who keep on mentioning Bible verses without debating them. Dennis, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, very well.
Excellent.
So tell us about your question situation.
It's just every time I try to talk with theists, they always come up with these Bible verses, right? So it's just I think it's called circular reasoning, but it's just annoying sometimes, right? That they keep on mentioning these Bible verses. So I just want to know, how do you respond to these types of situations with the theist?
Paul, go for it.
So I guess you mentioned that it's circular reasoning. Mentioning a Bible verse isn't necessarily always circular reasoning, depending on the context and what they're saying with it. Although I get that a lot of times what they're doing is trying to say that uh, they're assuming that you would give the book the same authority that they would, and that, for example, when I was a theist, certainly we would call that like proof texting, right? Where we all would agree that the Bible is an infinite authority, so all you need to do to support a position would be to say that the Bible verse says it. And I'm assuming that's what the context of what's happening for you is. Does that sound right? Where they're trying to say, because the Bible says X, Y, or Z, you should believe X, Y, and Z? Is that the situation you're getting into?
Yeah, definitely. That's the same situation that it's true because the Bible says so. So I think that's circular reasoning, right?
Well, yeah, for sure. At that point, circular reasoning would be more like saying the Bible is true because the Bible says it's true. So if they're trying to use the Bible justifying itself, but what I think this is more of a situation. I think the claim of circular reasoning or the accusation of circular reasoning may fall deaf on them because they've already just accepted it as an authority. I think what I try and do in that situation is try to demonstrate to them, and a lot of times they haven't even thought about this, that the Bible isn't actually an authority for you, that you don't treat the Bible as any more weighing in on your life than the Chronicles of Narnia or some other holy book that maybe they would also reject. So have you tried that? Have you tried like giving them more of a sense that the Bible isn't authority for you, so what else do we have to talk about, or does it kind of become a stalemate?
It's just I just try to tell them that you cannot just mention the Bible because it's, yeah, as I said earlier, it's circular reasoning. You can prove it because the Bible tells you so. So that is just my response to them.
Yeah.
So even though
I would.
literally my mug here says "for the Bible tells me so," like it's a literal jingle on my channel, it's not universally the case. But go ahead.
Yeah. Just as a correction, instead of saying it's circular reasoning, perhaps better it would say that it's begging the question that, as Paul was saying, that you don't take what the Bible says and as an authority. So quoting it at you is basically to assume it's authority that you don't accept. So basically, that person is begging the question, you should believe what I'm saying because I already happen to believe it. And we already assumed you believed it, but it's one of those premises that is not initially defended. But of course, if they try to then defend what the Bible says based on something else the Bible says, then you're definitely getting into circular reasoning territory.
All right, got you on that. And I have another question regarding this. It's just because there was one time that I had a debate with a theist, and he said, and I asked him, why do you keep on? You're a religious person, right? And why do you keep on always committing sins, doing bad things? And he replied that it's because we're still in the human form. We're still this. We're bound to sin. I mean, I just don't know how to respond sometimes to that.
Well, what question were you? Is your understanding of Christianity that a perfect Christian would be without sin from this point on in their life? Is that your understanding of how their religion would work?
No, it's just why basically why they are always they are Christians or religious people who do bad things even though they're religious, right? So I'm not sure. That's why I've asked him why there are people who always do bad things even though let's say like the pastors or those people in high authorities in churches, why they, some of them are convicted with rape or some other stuff. So why are they why do they commit those things even though they are the blessed with God or guided by God? So,
Well, the flavor of Christian that I was, and I can't speak to other religions like Islam or some of the others, but the flavor of Christian that I was absolutely accounts for that. And in fact, they make that part of their pillar of what they're doing is that all have sinned and fallen short, and that there's literally no human on earth that can live up to the ideals. And so anytime a pastor falls or whatever, for them, that is just a reminder that no matter how pious or holy you seem on the outside, ultimately the sin isn't cured by anything that a person can do themselves. So in a way, they've built the system such that those are affirming as opposed to disaffirming. Does that make any sense?
yeah, that makes sense.
So if I was putting on my Jesus hat there, I don't, obviously that's not what I accept today, but that is a feature they've built in, sort of this self-affirming kind of notion of it. So when you bring up those examples to them, it's not going to put a chink in the armor. You can say things like, well, the divorce rate among Christians is just as high, or is just as high rate of cheating on taxes. Like there's lots of these studies, right, where the religiosity doesn't seem to make you behave better, but Christianity at least have baked that in. I don't know, Aaron, did you want to?
Yeah, I come from a Catholic background, and Dennis, you're in the Philippines, which is also, for understand, if it's Christian, it's mostly Catholic there, from my understanding, and so the phrase Catholic guilt is pretty common for that. So everyone's guilty, everyone's a screw up, everyone has original sin, everyone is naughty. So yeah, as Paul is saying, it's pretty much built in to the theology there. But what often is said is that if you are following the teachings, then you should be more moral, you should be more outstanding, that you are called to be so. And then you can say, hey, if that were the case, then let's take a look at the stats and say, hey, people who are religious are not more moral. In fact, it seems like the more secular countries seem to actually be better on crime statistics and other things like that. So if anything, the hypothesis goes in the opposite direction. And that's harder to explain if religion is supposed to somehow make people even 1% better, if they're no better or even potentially worse, or in the case of the Catholic Church, is literally an organized pedophile ring because of what they have done with their priests around the world. You can't basically say there's any sort of moral authority or moral status that's better because of that religion. In fact, it adds power structures that seems to protect some of the worst offenders.
So your observation there, Dennis, was amazing for whether Christianity is useful. I immediately my default, and it's a fault of mine. I default often goes to the question of, does that make it true or false? Your observation can't prove whether it's true or false, but your observation is absolutely damning if someone comes to you and says, regardless of whether it's true, Christianity is useful or religion in general is useful. What you notice there, as Aaron highlighted, it absolutely undermines, of course, the utility of religion.
Yeah, appreciate the answer. And my last question, and because I also debated someone over the internet, and she asked me that if Jesus did not rise, if Jesus did not rise from the dead, where's the body? So I just replied, the body just decomposed. But fortunately, she did not accept the answer. She said, if you can provide me the body, then I would be an atheist right this very moment. So I want to know how do you respond to that?
I can't find the body of Julius Caesar. Does that mean he is risen? Probably not, right? Most people from that far back are dust. And I don't think not being able to find the body of a 2,000-year-old carpenter is even evidence that they've risen from the dead. It just means you ain't got a body. And that's pretty consistent with how almost everyone has ever died for the last 100,000 years.
So, Dennis, that Christian is likely going to more point to the say, because of course if we found a body now and claimed that it would be Jesus, there's no way to determine, right, whether that's Jesus. They've got the one crucifixion victim they found, Yohanan, in Jerusalem, who had a nail still in his ankle. No one could ever say. We don't have DNA tests. We don't know if it was Jesus. So obviously anything now. I think the more challenging thing that a Christian might posit to you, though, is why didn't they in those early days, if the Romans were so sure, bring out the body and say, hey, this is where Christianity is. I do think about this a lot, and I write about this a lot. One of the things that really, unfortunately, isn't as convincing to Christians as it should be, but historically, if you think about where was the body of the thief beside Jesus, where did that end up? Forget the Jesus story, because that's a special story, but the thief beside Jesus probably ended up, if the Romans dealt with him, ended up being food for dogs, tossed on the side of the road. If his family came and got him, then he would have ended up in a family plot in the town where that thief was from. Now we assume that Jesus was not from Jerusalem, because most of the stories about him don't place him in that city. So that meant that Jesus' body would have gone far away if the family just owned him, got him. But the records don't show that the family was influential enough to get the body either. The third option is that the Sanhedrin has to bury him. And there's very strict rules that a crucifixion victim has to be buried in a separate graveyard, one of two separate graveyards, outside of the city, where they don't mark the graves, where the disgrace is part of it. No one's allowed to mourn. So the most likely cases where Jesus' body would have ended up is in a place where no one could have retrieved it, right? So, but the Christians have this special case. Well, we came up with this story in the Bible where this rich person who had just the exact right political connections to get the body put him in a place that could be remembered. Well, that is the least likely case when you talk about a general person who was crucified. So, really, the real answer is most likely Jesus was put somewhere where no one knew where he was. No one outside of his followers were interested in him at the time enough to mark the grave and do all this stuff. So the Christian story is implausible. But then you add on top of that, by the time anyone cared about Christianity as a movement, we're talking about years now. So let's imagine a dead body that you pull out of the grave now. Not even now, because now we have DNA and we have all these things. But let's say in the first century, you pull a dead corpse out of the ground and say, well, here's the corpse of a Jewish man that has been decayed for, let's say, at least 40 days, right? At that point in time, who's going to believe, if you believe that Jesus rose from the dead, are you going to believe that this corpse that they dragged out was Jesus? What are we imagining here? Even if you just are familiar with body decomposition now, it doesn't take that long for they need dental records to identify these people or DNA tests, right? So this whole notion that the Romans could have, from some marked grave, which is very unlikely in and of itself, pulled out that body and convinced a believer that was Jesus, I don't imagine how that could even work. It seems it's one of those objections that seems strong until you push against it a little bit. What about a dead body would have convinced a believing Christian that he was not risen? Does that jive with your thoughts about it, or are these new thoughts? And did my monologue make you? Sorry, I rant.
No, it's just was clueless before on how to respond that, but thankfully you have clarified that to me.
Well, let me ask, but does that make sense to you at all? Is what I say, do you think that that's a good objection?
Yeah, of course. I believe so.
And I'm going to just throw an add on there because one thing I want to highlight the 40 days aspect, because that's the earliest, according to the Christian tradition itself, that the disciples went public with their Jesus is back from the dead message. So that's 40 days of a corpse potentially rotting away to the point that it would probably be unrecognizable. But even under the assumption that someone would still want to go and pull out the body to show everyone that Jesus was not risen from the dead, they would have ended up committing a crime because they would have been desecrating a grave. And tomb robbing is actually a capital offense in this time, both under Jewish and under Roman law. So whoever was going to go and try to do that would have also basically said, here's the body and here's my neck, because I just committed a capital crime publicly. It's a pretty hard sell that that's even a possible argument that could have happened in the first few months of the nascent religion.
All right, guys, I truly appreciate the response. So thank you
Well, these are great
thank you for
questions,
taking my
Dennis.
call.
Really good questions.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you for taking my call. Have a great day.
Thank you for calling in. All right.
Sorry, Aaron, when it gets to resurrection-related questions, I just click in on ramble
Yeah.
mode. But
Well, you've been at this for, 2-3 weeks?
yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. I will try to spend some more time there. I have a copy of Habermas's Evidences' book. I'm not sure how many times I'm supposed to pluralize that word.
It's a 5-pounder.
Oh, that it is. It is.
And I just finished volume 2, actually. Volume 2 came out about 3 weeks ago, and I just wrapped that up. It's another 900 pages, so it's a lot.
Yeah, for the most part, I have done most of my focus related to the birth story rather than the death story. And apparently there's already people on TikTok that are trying to get ahead of time that already the Star of Jacob is coming back now. It's like, come on, we can't have the war on Christmas starting in October. Please give me a month.
Come on, yeah. I'm very strict. Yeah, none of that until Thanksgiving. Although Canadian Thanksgiving just happened, so open season in Canada.
Yeah. I am a strong believer in maintaining the wall between Halloween and Christmas.
That's
So
right.
I try as much as I can to say, let's not do any Christmas stuff before Halloween, but I haven't even been able to convince my wife of that, so my war is going very, very badly.
Funny.
There is the compromise of watching Christmas-themed horror films.
Oh, well, I'm only aware of one. So, no, I guess I know a few. There's Krampus and there's a few others. Yeah.
Basically, turn on Netflix. There will be 8 or 9 such movies, all made with about $8 or $9.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. Now, let us try another call. And by another call, I'm going to try to bring back in Kay. So, Kay, again from Arizona. Can you hear us?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Kay.
Very good.
Hi. Thanks for taking the call. How are you?
Absolutely.
We're well.
All right. Good to hear. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, let's
just
go with your
wanted to-
question. What kind of material do you want to talk about?
Yeah. So I guess just to kind of contextualize the call here. So I would consider myself an agnostic atheist. And yeah, so I have this question here, whether material naturalism is the foundation, the fundamental, we can call it substance of reality. And so the question here, or I guess the talk really is really more me just asking more than really arguing that it's not. But yeah, I have I guess a couple of reasons that make me kind of put that into question, or to question that material naturalism is the fundamental substance, or the fundamental reality. Yeah, but did you have any questions about that? I guess.
I think you've set up the context all right. So I guess, let's get into why there might be something fundamentally non-material, non-physical?
hmm Yeah, well, I guess I'm not really going to even try to argue for, well, like something like a spiritual or something like, or something like that. It's just like I said, I wanted to explore reasons why maybe, yes, material naturalism isn't the foundation of reality. But yeah, I guess we can start. I don't know if you've heard of there was this Christian philosopher, Alvin Plantinga. He had an argument against naturalism. I don't know if you were familiar with that.
The evolutionary argument against naturalism, I believe it's called.
Yeah. So are you familiar with that?
A bit. But for the sake of everyone in the audience and to make sure I don't strawman anything, how do you want to describe it or present it?
Yeah, so I guess one thing that we need to just clarify is that, at least the way that I understand it, Alvin Plantinga's argument is really an epistemological argument as opposed to a metaphysical argument, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the argument is about our knowledge, or more specifically, do we have good reasons to believe that naturalism or material naturalism, like I said, is the real, let's say, call it theory, right? It's not a decisive, 100%, decisive argument. It's just an epistemological argument. It's an argument that attacks your justification for believing that material naturalism is the foundation of reality. Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify that. I guess so. The argument, if I could put this in premise conclusion form, are you still? I just want to make sure. Are you following along?
At least I'm following.
Yep, go for it. We're good.
Okay. So, proposition one is the probability that our human cognitive faculties are reliable. The probability of that, given that material naturalism and evolution by natural selection is true, right? So the probability of the former given the latter is low. So that's the first premise. So do you have any questions about that?
I have objections, but you can carry on.
Yeah, lay out the premises first, and then we'll discuss.
Okay. So, so the next premise, this is a conditional statement. So it says that if I accept or I believe that natural or evolution by natural selection and material naturalism is true, and I accept that, I accept proposition one, then I have a defeater for my belief that our human cognitive faculties are reliable. So does that make sense?
I don't know if we would use the word defeater in this context, but let me try to rephrase what's going on here and just see if you think this is a reasonable approximation of your argument. If naturalism were true, we would not expect our senses and reasoning ability to be reliable. Our senses and reasoning are reliable, therefore naturalism is unlikely to be true. Is that a reasonable approximation of the argument?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So here is where I would point out that one man's modus tollens is another person's modus tollens. I could run the argument backwards and show that, hey, if there is something out there that's supposed to make our senses and reasoning reliable, then it runs into the problem. We have all sorts of examples of our senses and reasoning being unreliable. We have optical and auditory illusions. We have all sorts of reasoning mistakes, all sorts of really weird quirks that seem to be quirks of the nature in part of the brain and the way the brain is structured, which itself is a relic of our evolutionary history. And that is not expected on supernaturalism, but pretty much required on naturalism. So I would run the argument backwards and basically say, hey, if this thing was created or put together by something that doesn't require naturalism, that can go beyond the natural, then why does it seem to have all the foibles you'd expect from a kludgy process like evolution that makes things work good enough, but not necessarily perfect?
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I guess if I could just add a little bit more context. So let's say the ontological or the metaphysical landscape or map that I see is well, so I see this. Yeah, okay. So I imagine this as like a diamond. Let's say at the top vertex, we can put substance dualism there. On the left corner of this diamond shape, we can put material naturalism. On the right side, we could put, let's say, idealism, and on the bottom, we could put, let's say, neutral substance monism. So I think that I would agree with that you would run into some troubles if you if I want to, or let me phrase it like this: I would run into trouble if I were to invoke or try to use this as some kind of argument for, let's say, dualism, right? Where there, I'm going to put this in air quotes, there is this supposed non-physical, non-materialistic, or immaterial world or substance, right? The spiritual world, right? And so actually, I don't, I hear Christians give this argument, right? But I don't think Christians realize that this is actually an argument against them, because with substance dualism, they also affirm that the material world is in some way real, in some way, fundamental. It's just fundamental in this part of, I guess, the metaphysical world, right? So yeah, I would agree with you that if I were to invoke some supernatural substance, some supernatural world, like one would do in a substance dualism framework like Christianity, yeah, I think that would run into a problem. But I think the original argument here is attack on material naturalism. I think it's the point still holds. Does that make sense?
So I think it still has all the problems about just even my quick formulation issue of running the logic backwards. Because I understand that, Plantinga is basically trying to say there is a tension between believing in naturalism and believing in evolution, because evolution won't give you a brain that will be reliable, and you're using that brain to come up with all the science you're doing. Problem is, first off, that if this is supposed to then be somehow a different prediction than supernaturalism, as Plantinga does, then he still got the exact same sort of problem that I just mentioned, we would then expect brains and senses that would be more reliable than what they currently are. In fact, one might even wonder why they aren't perfectly reliable. Why is it that we have all sorts of optical illusions, that I look at a power outlet and see faces, or I see dragons in the clouds, or I think I hear my mother calling me when there was nothing going on? All those weird little things, let alone all the other visual, auditory, sensing illusions that we have, and to some degree that we actually exploit for movie magic. Paul can, of course, talk much more about that, but the fact of the matter is, when you're watching a video, you are not watching reality. You're watching, at least in the olden days, 24 stationary images just being traded out very fast enough that our brain just kind of blends it all together. Why would we expect that on basically a supernatural sort of thing going on there? But it's also worth noting this. I think also Plantinga doesn't really know what evolution is, because evolution doesn't work on individual beliefs. And the fact of the matter is, if you had the really weird ideas that, hey, that there's just this giant collection of beliefs that evolution acts on, rather than we have these sense organs that need to make at least good enough understanding of the world to make sure we don't fall off a cliff, fall into the mouth of a tiger, or into a volcano, or any other, stupid situation where we don't survive and have kids. That's the sort of thing that evolution actually does do, and it makes brains just good enough to ultimately pass those sorts of things. And it's only been on top of that hardware that we've started installing the software of mathematics, of scientific thinking. And even there, kind of hit and miss how well of a job we do. Believe me, we are not exactly very good at talking about infinity, because we ended up having these brains that weren't well designed to handle that concept. And we're still dealing with weird, counterintuitive notions because of that. So, like I say, I would just throw it back to Plantinga and say, one, I don't think you know what evolution is. And two, give a thumbs up to that. And two, the hypothesis that is being put forward under supernaturalism would give us reasoning and sense reliability that should be different than what we actually do see. So I don't even find it not convincing. I think it's actually evidence against theism and supernaturalism then, broadly.
Yeah, I don't think Plantinga is adequately understanding that a brain that is right 50% of the time is going to have a survival advantage over a brain that is right 25% of the time, right? And so you work your way slowly, and a brain doesn't have to, again, it doesn't have to be 100% correct to have a survival advantage. And that just seems to be, as Aaron pointed out, the huge flaw. I think that's the biggest flaw of all, is just that failure to understand that the imperfect eye is better than no eye at all in terms of evolutionary, development.
Yeah. Well, even more importantly, the foibles that our brains have are a product of our evolution. So, for example, the fact that we grew up as a social species, we are so attuned to trying to get any sort of social information from our common tribe members. We're really obsessed with faces and all sorts of subtleties of faces. So our brain is hyperactive in looking for faces anywhere and everywhere and interpreting those faces, even when they're not there. We look at the clouds, we see a smiling face. I look at this this outlet in my house. It looks like it's giving me the O face. Why is it making that face at me? Did I do something wrong? It's going, oh, no. That's what our brains do. It sees things that aren't there, in part because of our strange evolutionary history. And that's exactly what you expect then on evolution, that we have architecture in our brains that is biased towards certain things, but it's definitely not going to be so unreliable that we can't successfully navigate the world. Because to be able to navigate the world with any high level enough of reliability to have species go around for tens of thousands of years, it can't be just a whole bunch of dumb luck. It has to have enough reasoning power to do it well enough to survive like that, and to have something that can just be completely imaginary is absurdly improbable.
Plantinga also fails to recognize that most of the scientific endeavor is rules put in place to overcome our brain's faults and limitations and biases. Like, we wouldn't need to have the idea that we can try and repeat results if we perfectly got it right every time, or if we perfectly observed everything every time. Like, so much of scientific infrastructure is around overcoming human limitations, and that's how we've achieved things, by crowdsourcing the project, as it were, because individually we're terrible. So I've never found this a compelling argument, frankly, from Planting Up. And I apologize for my dog. I don't know if you guys can hear the thunderstorm that's happening here, but we're getting crazy thunder, and my puppy is very afraid of thunder. So apologies for that distraction.
So, Paul, I know you're Canadian. You have to apologize for everything, but on this show, there's two things we never apologize for: our opinions and our puppies.
Anyhow, Kate, does any of that make sense?
Okay, I'm afraid your phone might have gone mute. You might need to tap it to wake it up.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can now. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. I guess I'm not. I think I'm not understanding. Because I agree with everything you said, and I suspect that Plantiga would also agree with what you said, right? That our brains are really infallible to.
Oh no, the problem is they're not infallible. They're quite fallible. That's the thing that Plantinga doesn't really address well. The fact that our brains, our reasoning, is filled with foibles and fallacies and problems and shortcuts and kludges that are not expected on perfectly reliable hardware. This is, like, at best, my brain is Windows 3.1, at best.
Yeah, well, I think that's the, I guess, the little seed of doubt, or skepticism that kind of corrupts the whole thing, right? Is that, yeah, we're not very good at perceiving reality, and so maybe that kind of trickles down or muddies your all of your cognitive faculties, and hence, now you can doubt this this belief of evolution and naturalism.
But again, the issue, though, is that our brains are not, like, so unreliable that it's 50-50 about anything they believe. It's that, hey, it makes mistakes, but that never means, therefore, you have reason to believe everything you believe is wrong. If there's a 1% chance that one of my beliefs is wrong, that would mean, like, roughly 1 in 100 of my beliefs are wrong. That doesn't mean everything is under doubt and I can't believe anything. That would actually be not just hyperskepticism, but that would be mathematically incoherent. If I have a 99% chance of winning the lottery, I can't go and assume I've lost. It's like, no, that is against the probability.
Yeah, and that's that's kind of why I premised this whole thing, that this is an epistemological argument, right? It's not a it's attacking your your justification for believing, right? It's not. This isn't a solid punch, a solid defeater of this belief of evolution and material naturalism. It's really just
my argument isn't. It's not just. I'm saying it's not just not a strong argument. I don't even think it's a wet squib. I don't think it has any power at all as an argument to make me even change the probability in favor of the supernatural a small amount. In fact, if anything, as I would argue, it's evidence against, because everything that is weird about our reasoning actually makes sense in the light of evolution. And that is not what you would expect if somehow there's anything that makes our brains more reliable than what an evolutionary process would do.
Well, I guess let me say something I I do kind of depart from, well, I don't like I said earlier, I really doubt Christianity. But in another way that I think I kind of depart from Plantinga is that I think that if this is right, if he's right, then I think that maybe material naturalism and evolution are true, or these are true theories, but they're also not true. And just I'm going to try to explain that. So I'm a complete ignorant when it comes to physics. I think more than I know that you know more than I do. But so correct me if I'm misunderstanding or misconstruing things here. But Newtonian mechanics, right, works pretty darn good here on Earth, but it doesn't work really good if we try to use it. If we try to get a rocket to, let's say, another solar system. But Einstein's theory of general relativity is also makes predictions, the same predictions as, let's say, Newton, and maybe slightly more accurate here on Earth, but also makes these predictions at or let me say like this can also get the spaceship to another solar system, or maybe even beyond that. So I guess just to use an analogy, if we think of reality as a table and our theories as these mantles that are covering the table, right? I think maybe, let's say, Isaac Newton's theory or Newtonian mechanics is it's this mantle. This is just for the sake of the example. Let's say Newtonian mechanics covers a fourth of the table, a fourth of, let's say, reality. And Einstein's theory covers, let's say, half of the table, right? Or maybe the whole table. But the point being is that Newtonian mechanics is true here locally, but it may not be true in other contexts or places in the universe. And I think that similarly, maybe material naturalism and evolution are true in a sense, but they may not be the fundamental reality. Hence the question. And I think that might avoid the counter argument, right? The supernaturalism, right? Which I said I don't believe in supernaturalism either.
Okay, you lost me entirely. So,
may I? I think I can.
yeah, please.
I think I can try to translate. So, the idea that we use Newtonian physics, Newtonian gravity really well for a lot of stuff, but it's not the ultimate theory. So we might say that Newtonian physics is instrumentally true. It is useful, but not fundamentally true, because Einstein's theory of general relativity does even better at saying what true reality is. But even that, we might say, is actually still instrumental. We can't really know for sure. So I think what Kay is getting at is materialism might be instrumentally true, that it does a lot of heavy lifting for us, but it doesn't actually tell us about the ultimate reality, that it just might be really good for calculating, but it may not be the ultimate reality. Kay, do you think I'm representing you well?
Yeah, and I would also add evolution there, with naturalism as well. Yeah.
Well, that's where I think you shouldn't. I think you shouldn't mix. You shouldn't mix those two things, probably.
Yeah.
Because, well, go ahead. I'll let you finish your thought. Mm-hmm. Let's just leave evolution out of it for now. Let's just talk about supernaturalism and naturalism as one topic at a time, if we can.
Yeah. So I would, just to clarify, I would say material naturalism, because I think that you can conceptualize naturalism in these other ontologies, right? Like idealism, or even neutral substance monism as well. But yeah, go ahead.
So there are two things. There's methodological naturalism, which is what historians and scientists typically agree to, where they're going to say, like, you know what, for the sake of advancing our fields, we're going to just not worry about whether there might be something supernatural, because it doesn't necessarily help make predictions or whatever, right? So that's methodological naturalism, which is the pragmatic version. Then there's, of course, philosophical naturalism, which is more of a hard stance, saying not only is materialism the only useful part, a philosophical naturalist is going to be more hard stance and say, nah, there isn't even supernatural. Is that the kind of delineation you're attempting to make here?
Kay, we can't hear you. Just make sure your phone isn't asleep again.
Yeah, sorry about that.
We hear you now.
Yeah, I guess let me try to explain what I understand by naturalism. So if we take whatever reality or the nature of reality is, by naturalism, I understand that every phenomenon can be explained by whatever the nature of reality is. It's a closed system, right? And so something like supernatural means that I'm having to explain something in the system. I'm having to appeal to something outside of the system to explain something in the system, right?
Sure.
And I think this kind of conceptual this structure can be. I don't think that it's exclusive to materialism. I mean, it doesn't work with again with the dualism and
Okay, so
all of that.
I think though,
Right, so-
by saying like there's an outside sort of thing out there, I think this actually does though kind of get to the heart of where I would say the big objection to where you're going with all this is. Here's the thing.
Yeah,
Naturalism,
I'm sorry.
materialism
can you repeat
has
that
been.
again?
Yeah, I was going to say here is where I'm going to push back and say, hey, here's the thing. Materialism hasn't just been very successful. It's that we haven't found anything that falls outside of what materialism can explain. While conversely, there have been all sorts of supernaturalistic claims for millennia, and every time that we're able to check them out, they fall apart, and we can either show that somebody was duped in some sort of way, or there's some other materialistic explanation for what's going on. That has basically been the entire history of science.
I'm sorry.
So,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Can I just clarify something? I'm not trying to argue for a supernatural understanding. But I think I think I've mentioned this, and I apologize if I'm not clear. Yeah, so like I would reject supernaturalism in any of these four ontologies, dualism, materialism, idealism, or even if there is this supernatural realm, then it can't be one of the monisms, right? It can't be materialism, it can't be idealism, or it can't be neutral substance monism. It has to be dualism, like Christians believe, right? And I reject that. We can I'm sure you can come up with some counter arguments to dualism. I can do that too. I just don't think it's even worth our time. But so as I see it, this leaves 4 options or 5 options, which would be idealism, or some form of idealism, or a substance monism, a neutral substance monism. And in those ontologies, that doesn't obligate me to believe in supernaturalism. So just to clarify,
on idealism or these other ontologies, and you're excluding dualism. So on these other ontologies, does it make any observable difference from what you would expect on materialism? Does it make any sort of predictions different than what a materialist prediction would have, or is everything identical?
I think it has. I think it has to. It has to. It has to be like this. Like, let me just go back to that Newtonian Einstein, theories, right?
We don't have to go back to that. This is just a question. Is it that are you going to see the exact sort of things on materialism as you are on these non-materialist ontologies? Will there be any observable difference?
Well, yes and no, right? So these ontologies have to make the same predictions. Oh, well, not quite, right? So, like, this is why I'm referring back to the Newtonian mechanics and Einstein example, right?
And if we go back to that example, Einstein, they do make different predictions. Go out and see things that are impossible on Newtonian mechanics. So on the same sort of thing, if you're saying there's a different ontology, either it has to make identical predictions or it has to make different predictions. And I'm trying to get at what you think it actually is, because it can only be one or the other. It's either identical in what you will see, or there will be some observable difference. Which of the two is it?
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm going to push back on that, right? So, Newtonian.
This is binary.
Einstein
it's one or the
theory
other.
makes the same. It's not, right? It's because Einstein's theory makes the same local predictions as Newtonian mechanics, but yet they differ at in other places, right?
So the answer is they differ.
So yes and no.
No, it's not
the
yes
answer
and
is
no.
yes.
I'm sorry?
The answer is yes, they do differ. If you can find any observable difference, then they're different.
Okay, yeah. In just in that understanding, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So on these other non-materialist ontologies, would there be any observable difference?
Yes.
Okay, what differences should we go out and look for? Because now it's a scientific question. If there are differences that we can go and see, then we can go and look for them. What should we look for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure. Let me. Okay, so this might kind of be an answer. And just to remind you, I'm a neophyte when it comes to physics. But are you familiar with Quantum magazine?
I know it.
So there's they also have a YouTube channel, and a couple of maybe months ago or weeks ago, they posted a video about Einstein's theory, and I'm going to I'm going to butcher it, so I might need your help here, but I'm going to try to explain what I understood from the video, which is that. So it seems like Einstein's theory breaks down on, or when physicists try to observe, I guess, particles.
Yeah.
Let's
grant that. We've been through this already. So we get that there's different models of physics that work better in different realms. Absolutely, get that. Totally get it. Where's we're trying to get to Therefore what? Therefore what when it comes to dualism or idealism or whatever? Like we understand. So are you just hypothesizing that maybe someday we will discover some corner that needs a supernatural realm? And we just haven't got there.
No,
just haven't found it yet.
I think no. I think I've repeated this already multiple times. I reject supernaturalism.
Well, but then I don't understand where we're going, because you keep coming up with these realms, and we understand that in physics, different models work better at different scales and in different scenarios. Cool. But therefore, what when it comes to naturalism and supernaturalism?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and well, again, I just want to clarify that I'm talking about material naturalism.
Okay, but therefore what?
Well, I guess let's just step back a little bit, and this whole talk, right? It's about, at least on my end, I'm trying to explore whether this idea might even be possible. The idea that material naturalism may not be the foundation of reality. Actual
possible
reality
is one thing, but is there anything that should make us think it's even plausible, let alone probable? Obviously, we can talk about it's possible that our ontology is wrong. I'll grant that, sure. But if you don't have any reason to think that, then it's mental masturbation at this point.
Yeah. I just feel like we were kind of losing the scope of the talk. But yeah, so
if your whole point calling in was saying maybe naturalism isn't right, then I think we would have agreed on in the first 10 seconds that maybe it's not.
Mm-hmm.
So is that essentially what you're getting at?
Yes, but I'm not just arbitrarily saying maybe. We talked about Plantinga's argument, and I was in the middle of talking about this other thing. Yeah.
But I don't. I guess you have to help me out with the point. I don't. I mean, the point of the show isn't like let's call and chit chat about possible things that might be because we think they're cool. Sort of the point of the show is we're examining what we believe and why. And so you've now mentioned several times you reject supernaturalism, and yet you seem to be, from my perspective, arguing that maybe supernaturalism shouldn't be rejected.
I think I think you're conflating material naturalism with just naturalism. So
fine. So
let's say,
I'm just you still seem to be treating this like you're calling up some buddies to say, isn't this a neat possibility that maybe is a thing, as opposed to.
Okay, I think we need to get to the point. Is there anything out there that you can point to and says, this is not possible on materialism, or at least unlikely on materialism? Because if you don't have anything like that, then we're just talking speculation and just hiding from the fact that, hey, this materialism thing is working out pretty darn well. What do you see as something that materialism fails to explain?
Well, I guess a problem that I see is that there's kind of this kind of quantity quality gap. So if with material naturalism, if everything can be defined by a list of numbers, and I don't understand how we can derive qualities such as experiences, qualia,
quality isn't quite the same thing as qualities, especially if you're comparing that to quantities. But I think we're getting to the point, basically, how do you get mental experience from materialism? And I'll just give the really short answer. Brains do weird shit that makes us go, ooh, wow. That's obviously not the very scientific take on it, but just the really quick and dirty. The quality we get is the peculiarities of our brains. There's nothing there that strikes me as somehow incompatible with materialism. We just don't know exactly how the brain arrives the particulars of my experiences. But to say that that means all of physics is a failure or somehow missing something important just because I can't describe necessarily how I got my experience of redness when looking at an apple, I think is solipsism pretending to be philosophy.
You might be muted again, Kay.
Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, I think this. It feels like we're confusing the map. These equations, these numbers. I think they're meant to represent something. I think insisting that our experiences and reality, whatever reality is those equations and those numbers. I think that might be confusing the map for the actual territory.
Do you think that's what either of us are doing?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's what either of us are doing?
I think so.
You think we're confusing?
Yeah, I think so.
You think we're confusing the physics for the reality?
Well, when it comes to maybe not performatively, I don't think so, but maybe intellectually.
All we're doing intellectually is saying we will entertain non-materialistic suggestions at which such time is that they're better explanations, or which time we have something that isn't explainable materially. And and I know you have some kind of arbitrary. You want to talk about material naturalism, which is a subset just of general naturalism or physicalism. All we're trying to do is demonstrate that there is something needed outside the materialism, and then we'll talk about it. And it doesn't seem like you actually have a thing. You have analogies, you have comparisons, you have different things that you don't feel are adequately explained yet, even though you're not denying that they could be explained. It just seems like right now we're treading water.
And it's worth noting, Kay, that when it comes to map territory analogy here, that you're going to have the same problem, because if we're saying, well, we're using the map of materialism, you're saying we should be using a different map, because when you're talking about idealism or any other sort of non-material ontology, that's a different map. The question is, why do we think we should even go to the shop and buy that map? Is there any feature that map has that the naturalism or materialism map doesn't have? Is there a reason why we would go and spend an extra $10 for that map rather than stick with the one we've gotten that not only has it done a good job, but every time previously people have relied on the non-materialistic map, they've gone off a cliff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I agree with what you said. Can I ask you something? So, how would you define, I guess, material?
I would say the fundamental stuff that's non-conscious, and then that means consciousness ultimately is derived from non-conscious stuff bumping together. If something fundamentally was conscious that you couldn't break it down into something non-conscious, that's where I think we then break away from materialism. That's my best way of creating a ontological divide. But I do think if we're going to now get into a whole bunch of other definitions and stuff, I think we may want to pause that conversation to move on to other callers.
Okay. Well, but if I could just say the last thing, or this last thing, if I understood you correctly, I think you gave like a negative definition, and I think we could also maybe give a positive definition, and maybe say that materialism, or something that is materialistic or material, something that has a dimension, has it's 3D.
It's just going to then fall into other definitions on top of definitions. It's not going to get us anywhere. So, like I say, I think we probably just want to end the call for tonight. And like I say, the best we're going to do if we're going to make progress on if materialism is false is find something that shows it's false, rather than can we come up with a definition that makes things difficult, rather than, hey, let's actually go and do an experiment to see if we're wrong. Because believe me, people have been, to use some rude language, wanking about this for thousands of years that have made no progress. Science has come in and said, hey, if we use methodological naturalistic approaches, we get a shit ton done. And all the other ontologies can't show they've had the same sort of progress. Instead, they've just sat on the sidelines and said, science will never do this, or we already knew that, or our results are consistent with that anyways. I've seen thousands of years of excuses while science actually gets things done. So I kind of want to leave it at there, but Kay, I don't want to say let's never talk again. Please call in at another time, but I do want to get other callers in tonight. All right? Oh, crud. I think you might be muted again at the very last moment. Oh, here you are. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I appreciate your time, and thanks for taking the call. Take care.
Thanks, Kay.
All right. Have a good night. All right. Has your ontology been shaken tonight, Paul?
It has not. No. It. I'm still open to the supernatural realm as soon as someone can make that make sense. But until then,
well, there were a couple times I saw you going back and forth between 3 and 2 dimensions, so your foundations might have been getting a little bit shaken.
Oh, I see. You guys get that's true. Yeah, fundamentally, yeah. Anyway, the thunder has stopped, so my dog has calmed down, and that's all good news too.
Mm-hmm. Very good, very good. All right, so how about we move on to our next caller, who is at least described as animistic. And they say they can prove the supernatural is real. Let's see what they got.
Hello.
So, Tree, calling in from Arizona. Tree, can you hear us?
Yes, can you guys hear me? Or I have headphones, if that's better.
Sounds fine.
Hello?
Hello.
Can you guys hear me?
Fine.
Cool. Hey, how's it going? What's your guys' name?
I'm Aaron.
What's your guys' name?
I'm Paul, and Aaron is with me.
Paul and Aaron. So I got a couple questions. You guys mind if I just shoot a couple off at you guys so I can figure out what kind of territory we're in?
Sure.
Fire away.
First of all, how long is the lag for my friends want to watch it live? So it's probably like, what, 15 seconds to 30 seconds? Or is this, I don't know. They're going to put it on YouTube.
Why does that matter?
Oh, it doesn't matter. It's just for them. But anyways, that doesn't matter. I'm sorry. I'm wasting your time. I'll go faster, bro. All right. So I just wanted to ask, one of you guys are Canadian, and then I'm going to guess you guys have 3.5 PhDs between the both of you? Or is any of that true? No?
I could inflate my credentials, but...
I have no PhDs. In fact, just a few years ago, I thought the dinosaurs floated on the Ark 4,000 years ago. So that's where we're at.
Oh, you were creationist? I
was.
Awesome for you, dude. Just to get out is like a big leap. That's awesome. How about I'm sorry, Robert. I didn't hear your name. The other guy,
Aaron.
Aaron has.
I am Aaron, the brother of Moses.
And Aaron has many, many credentials, but we don't need to get into that right now.
100%. My bad. I was just trying to see what we're in. So, you're both are staunch agnostic or atheist?
Depends on how you define it.
Will you define yours for me right now? Just so I know, and if this is a waste of time, I can move on, but it helps me formulate my argument for you guys.
I do not believe that there are any gods.
Okay, but you did
I
at one
don't
point
believe
when you
there
were
are any
creationist?
gods, and I think the probability of God is extremely small, so small that I don't consider it worth weighing as part of my decisions.
Yes, at one time, most of
Okay.
my life was wrapped up in the idea that God definitely existed.
Okay. Do you guys follow any philosophies, like major philosophies, like Stoicism, Taoism, Jainism, anything? Sufism,
No.
What worksism?
Buddhism? What's that?
Excuse me. Can
What
we get
works-
to the question?
Fair point. Yeah. Can
do
we
you
get
guys-
to what your question is?
What do you guys have like a top 3 or 2 favorite philosophies, like Stoicism, anything?
No,
You guys are into philosophy?
You know
It's all
what?
about like,
You know what? Why don't you ask your question, and if any of this background comes up, if any of this background is relevant, we'll let you know.
okay. Yeah, it's just part of the argument. So, okay. Have you guys ever had dreams? Like when you sleep?
Indeed.
Like throughout your life? Or even now? Like crazy dreams and shit, like you like fucking fight monsters, go places, die, wake up somewhere else, anything like that?
Yes.
Both of you?
Yeah,
Eric?
I've dreamed all sorts of otherwise impossible things.
I'm
Okay,
getting
and then
close
have you
to it
ever met
now,
anyone?
though.
Close to what?
Just falling asleep.
Oh, am I boring you guys? I'm so sorry. I'm gonna tie it up in a button. I'm a long talker sometimes. Okay, have you guys ever met anyone from dreams, or like had a dream that like happened and then like fucking happened in real life?
No.
For me, the
Have
opposite.
you known anyone that
actually.
has?
I had something in real life and then dreamed about it in a weird way.
Yeah.
Oh, that happens
You
all
kind
the
of
time.
follow that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Do you guys have you ever met anyone that said that that happened to them, and they believed it? Like when you look in their eyes.
Oh, but I've had people believe all kinds of things, including myself. I used to believe in all kinds of shaky causality things, but what that doesn't necessarily demonstrate anything. So people believe all kinds of
No, it
things that they
doesn't.
shouldn't.
Yeah, and people say all kinds of stuff, and I didn't believe people either until like I hung out with this guy, and he like I looked in his eyes, and he believed what he told me. It was like a miracle healing. And I remember looking at him, and I'm like, wow, because I've always studied the supernatural and occult and fucking shamanism, just everything, you know what I mean, just for fun. But and I didn't believe it, you know. And then when you have experiences like that are kind of undeniable or you can't explain them, and it could just be figments of imagination. But what is hallucination? I mean, truly, you give meaning to everything you see. Nothing means anything to anyone other than you right now, right? Even the table and the desk, like that wouldn't mean anything to a coyote or a cat. It'd be a completely different thing to them. So like the viewer actually gives meaning to whatever they see. So hallucinations, sometimes, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you talk to more people, you guys are probably in your late 30s. I just turned 40 myself, so.
That is very
I'm guessing
kind.
a little bit older. Well, you guys are young. Well, you guys seem younger. You seem like you're in your late 30s, but I don't know. But how do you guys feel about any of that? Do you guys have any counter arguments? Do you want to steel man, straw man me, or
What,
eviscerate my idea?
did you make an argument, or did you just say that a lot of times humans
okay.
give
It's an
meaning
argument.
to things
Sorry.
that they experience?
Yes. Okay. So there's shamans on every continent throughout time.
And?
Throughout time, throughout every continent, they speak of the same things about the spirit realm that they go to, and you can travel there. Usually, not even without drugs. It's usually like going through death, like staying there for 3 days or not eating for a week.
Right.
Trances
So
and stuff, and,
I
like,
don't
every continent
question.
throughout
I don't
time.
question that people have experiences. What I question is
Okay.
their ability to attribute them to whether they are even in a position to accurately attribute them to something or another.
Okay.
So-
Well, they're all
so
saying
what-
that they're attributed to this. Okay.
Yeah, no, we all have experiences, and we're biologically almost identical. All of us genetically, we're virtually identical, and so we are definitely going to have some of the same kind of experiences, even across time. What does that tell us about what people are attributing the experiences to?
Okay. So, here we go. So there's a theory of gravity, but we can tell that gravity exists, right? Like you're sitting down right now, I'm walking my room. Like, so gravity exists, but it's a theory. We have no idea what it is. Do you guys have your theories or working theories of what gravity is? Dark matter, there's a bunch of different theories, but we have no idea, right? But it's still here, right? So science hasn't uncovered like what would you say? 99% of most shit. What did you say? Do you guys know what quantum entanglement is? Can you guys explain that to me, or would you guys care to explain your idea?
So Aaron is an expert on all stuff, but we're not. I don't know that we are doing a science education show right now.
Oh, fair enough.
At the very least, I didn't bring out my whiteboard so I can write down Einstein's field equations and start deriving anything for us. I think the audience is probably bored enough if I even brought out a whiteboard, let alone start doing differential equations. So
no, and I wouldn't want to get more to what are you trying to get to, actually. Well, I just thought you could use your words to try and tell me about quantum entanglement, because they just had another study where they did quantum entanglement where they
But how does that relate to? But how does that relate to my assertion that people are not good at attributing their experiences?
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you. We're very fallible. We only see like 1% of light spectrum and audio spectrum, right? We don't see shit. And that's part of my point.
That has nothing to do with anything. Those are biological limitations. Cool.
Of course.
All I'm saying is people have experiences and they are not good at attributing those experiences to accurate causes.
Yes, but we don't know, right? So right there, there's a sliver, like even a point, 9. Yeah. Okay. So right there, that gets you in the door, right? So we don't know most of what's going on in the universe.
No, we don't. Right? We don't say that something because something is. We don't say that because something is possible that it's on the table.
But it's still possible, so why it would be on the table, even if it's 0.99991%, correct?
No, it gets on the table. It gets on the table when someone demonstrates a good reason to put it on the table.
There's already something else on the table that's doing a damn good job. I would like to have a good reason why I should bring this other thing on the table and using up my valuable space on my workbench here. I got a tool that works really well. Tell me a reason why I should go get this other tool.
Fair enough. So right now you're having a discussion about it on your podcast, so you felt it interesting enough to ask the question to random strangers and see what they had to say. So what makes you guys even interested in it? It's such an unbelievable, unreal type of deal. Like you guys really are staunch atheists. Why even discuss it?
That while you're all over the map, this is not what we're the point of the show is tell us what you believe and why we should believe it.
Oh, okay. Oh, my bad. Yeah, I didn't know the format. All right, so I believe in animism, like all things are alive, and I believe it because shamans exist in every single continent throughout time, and they say the same exact stories. South America, North America, Australia, every single continent.
So,
and they all talk
are you familiar with Joseph? Are you familiar with Joseph Campbell?
Of course, the hero's journey. Of course, that's part of like every person's life. That's the archetypal.
Right.
Are you familiar with Carl Gustav Jung?
Yeah.
Okay.
But Joseph Campbell.
Okay, go ahead.
It's fine. So I used to work for George Lucas. I'm very familiar with Joseph Campbell. Wow. So I just want to get to there. So Joseph Campbell was able to find commonalities in stories that resonate with people across cultures and time.
Correct.
Does that mean that there is some kind of fundamental truth to Star Wars?
Depends on the way you phrase that. I don't know, but he used the hero's journey and he used a lot of Akira Kurosawa films, like Yojimbo.
Because he was identifying qualities of stories that resonate with people.
And why is that?
You've done with your whole shaman thing, what you said was there's shamans across the world that tell stories that seem to resonate with people in a common kind of way.
Okay. Now, can I give you my addendum? I'll give you my addendum, and I like to shoot through things. Have you ever done DMT or ayahuasca or a heavy dose of mushrooms or?
No.
I don't know, ketamine, PCP, nothing? No drugs, huh? You're a Christian, so probably not, huh? Another guy's a PhD, so probably not with him either. Have you guys experienced with anything psychedelic?
So are you going to try and tell me that because... Are you going to tell me that because a hallucination is able to produce common experiences, that there's something grounding it beyond that our body chemistry works similarly?
Yes, as in, you could have hallucinations and then they could manifest in life. Like you could see things that happen. You can meet people. You could do a lot of different crazy shit. And if under the experience, I'm telling you, you'll change your mind immediately. I'm telling you, because once you experience it, you're like, oh, this is what they're talking about. I mean, it's unbelievable. And you've had dreams, so
I
you've
know,
already, you know,
I know a lot of atheists who like psychedelics, and that is not what they tell me.
Okay, what do they say then?
They acknowledge
DMT or ayahuasca. I would like to know.
They acknowledge that hallucinogenics can produce some qualia, produce some effects that are pleasant for some, unpleasant for others, and that some of those experiences are common, and they can use terms that describe them in a way that everyone nods and says, yeah, that's roughly what I experienced. But that does not somehow go ... Therefore, there's something behind it, other than that our body chemistry reacts the similar way when given the similar stimuli.
Yes, but so they have DMT-X. Have you heard of that? It's where they're putting people under DMT intravenously, and then they're titrating the dose. So that
I don't care what the thing is. Are you telling me
no,
because similar stimuli create similar results? Okay. Well,
so
stop listing off drugs then.
Well, no, let me finish the point here. I won't list off any more drugs. I'm sorry that you have I'm sorry. So in DTX, they're trying to map the actual area of DMT. So they're putting multiple people, 10, 20, 30 people under at the same dosage in that area, and they're mapping it with other people. So other people are having the same
So is that not exactly what I said? Similar stimuli create similar results.
Archetypal, and it's all just a mass hallucination because of the hardware we have, or the wetware we have of bodies. And so it's just a mass hallucination, but they can... okay. I guess that's a solid argument, but I mean, man, I feel like if I mention anything else, you're just going to get mad. Like, I don't know. But Christian mysticism, like Gnosticism, no, okay.
So you all I'm saying is you seem to hold your belief system based on the fact that there seems to be, you mentioned shaman several times. The reason you believe this is because common people do common things. That seems to be the over and over recurring theme tree that the reason you believe things is for what I consider to be very sketchy and dubious attributions.
No, absolutely. But I mean, if you have dreams where you meet people and shit, like that's like, you know, like months before, like I'm not saying that happened to me, but I'm just saying I've met people that's happened to, and it kind of just shifts your...
You've met people who may have claimed that. Let's be careful. There's a difference between the claim and what is evidently shown.
Yes, but when you have that experience, like it's like undeniable, especially if it happens like multiple times, like 3 times.
To be clear, we're not denying the experience. What we're denying is the attribution, right? So the people have dreams, and the dreams are never hyper specific. You get an archetype in your head. You get this.
Sure. There's you, or you don't remember. But for other people, it can be hyper specific. Like
no. The dream
they tend to
dream
become hyper
remembrance.
specific after the fact.
Yeah.
In fact, this is part of the phenomenon that happens with, for example, deja vu. I don't do the sorts of drugs you mentioned, but I've experienced deja vu. Is it because I'm some sort of time traveler, or my mind gets ahead of me to know what's happening? Or is it that there's weird quirks in my brain that fills in the gaps as a reconstruction after the fact? Sure. I think it's more of the latter.
Sure, but okay, so let me just tell a story of a friend, all right? This isn't me. They had a dream, 3 dreams in a row. And so I'll just tell one of them, green-eyed cat face 3 times in the dream, like fucking over everything. And then a month and a half later, she became a roommate, right? Same fucking face, looked just like the first time they met. They're like, what the fuck? The dream happened exactly as it was shown, right? And that happened 3 times, right? So what would you explain that would be if that happened to you? Like hypothetically, you had 3 dreams that happened. You met like a bunch of people from the dreams. And then what would you think that would be? Like they say that time is an ocean, it's not a stream. And I don't know what that means, but I don't know. How would you explain that?
I don't know who they are or why I should believe them. So let's just not throw out random metaphors. Let's talk about facts.
Facts, absolutely.
You are saying somebody says they had a dream that they would meet someone, and then they met someone that looked similar to their dream. Okay, you know what? Most people kind of look like each other. There's not that huge a variety. People keep saying that I look like Ryan Reynolds or Josh Groban, but that does not make me them. Believe me, your bank account, I am not them.
Ryan Reynolds, bro, get out of here. What do you look like? Let's see. All right, that's fine.
Well, it convinced my wife, so that's enough. That's 1 point right there, okay?
Oh, that doesn't count, bro. Wife don't count. Get out of here with that shit. Oh, I'm sorry if I can't cuss. This is Canadian, I'm sure, right? Fair enough. I was just doing a hypothetical because I mean, I don't believe people either. I haven't believed people my entire life. I'm telling you, like forever. And then in like my late 30s, man, this guy told me things about myself that, reflected me completely, and I didn't even see it. And I just believed him. And he said a story that was just unbelievable. But, and then I've had experiences, like I said. Okay, go ahead.
I would encourage you, when you're having these experiences, to think deeper about if there is some plausible reason that that any kind of vague or even specific things that they're telling you might be true. There's things called cold reading. People are very good at horoscopes. People tend to think that it applies to them when they don't, or when they're far too vague. And you're asking me what will I do if this hypothetical situation happened? I get that all the time, but these hypothetical situations don't happen, right? So
no, but they do.
Even though
I've heard people's stories.
There's also a numbers game that we should realize that we're playing here, because here's the thing. I've had dreams. I've had lots of dreams. I have the best dreams. Sorry, I'm sorry, wrong voice is coming out. But guess what?
You're Ryan Reynolds in your
all of my dreams come true. Not all the things that I imagine come into reality. So guess what? If I only remember the times where I have a dream and something kind of sort of happens about it, that sticks out a whole lot better. And believe me, we have lots of people's other dreams that we can look at and see couldn't even possibly be real. I'm going to go back to Paul's namesake here and go back to the Bible, and he talks about basically his own wacky sort of dream where he basically flies up into the heavens to have a chat with all sorts of supernatural entities in the quote-unquote third heaven. He's imagining a cosmos that does not exist, where he's being attacked by the devil while he's in the Garden of Eden. Guess what? None of that shit happened, because we know what is in outer space, and it is not filled with idyllic gardens and demons. So guess what? That dream that Paul was having and records in his second letter to the Corinthians is not real.
Okay. And so says you. And also the Bible was written over 350 years by Jewish rabbis. So let's not get crazy by quoting the Bible now. I don't like any religions. There's 4,000 religions.
Here's somebody's dream and it ain't real.
Exactly.
Yeah. Religion's a bunch of parables, but there are, just like Joseph Campbell, there are actually extreme knowledge in everything. There's a reason that these stories are passed on. I mean, reading is what, 500 years old, 400 years old with the printing press with Martin Luther? Most people fucking heard stories, just like this podcast. Podcast is so big.
I would encourage you to look up cuneiform and figure out that reading is way older.
That wasn't popular. All right, dude. Cuneiform was, you know how expensive cuneiform was back then? That was like 10% of the population, probably, maybe 20. Like, it wasn't widespread reading, bro. Reading is like a new
that's high. It was probably lower than that, but again, the reading is old. So
no, it's not that old. I'm saying the vast majority of people didn't know how to read, and it's always been like that. Even with the cuneiform.
If you want to say literacy. Oh, so you're talking about literacy in terms of something else.
Yeah, people learn by listening to stories by the campfire and talking to people. That's how we learned forever.
Yeah.
And then fucking reading was like 400 or 500 years old with the printing press with Martin Luther. And cuneiform, like, it was less than 5% of the population that can do how to read cuneiform, bro. I'll bet you on that. But I don't know. It doesn't matter. That's hyperbole, because I'm not a fucking archaeologist. I'm just telling you shit that I've read. I don't know. But
I don't think we know what the point is, what we're talking about this here. I think the key thing is we have records of people's crazy dreams, and guess what? We can tell people have crazy dreams about all sorts of things, and because they can be about just about anything, they're probably not a reliable source to how the universe works.
Yeah, but also, like, you could get in these modes. Like, if I gave you a dose of DMT, bro, I'll tell you right now, you'll see some crazy shit. And we could actually work with it where you could see, like, what we talk about, and, like,
here's the thing. I've read this other book with all sorts of crazy imagery, and guess what? I don't believe that book either. And that doesn't care. I don't care which drug they happen to have been using or not. I can look and say, hey, crazy dream, not real.
Yeah, it's not real. No, I see that. How do you feel? So wait, what are your PhDs in? Can I ask you that just so I can figure out how to talk here? Is that too much?
Well, you can talk to me in English. I'm pretty good at that.
Well, what are your PhDs in? Like astrophysics? Fucking, I don't know. Electroengineering?
It's in physics, but it's ultimately irrelevant to this question anyways.
I'm just trying to understand how you look at the world, and like what you were talking about math earlier, so you know about.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can do equations.
The way I look at the world is carefully.
Say what?
The way I look at the world is carefully.
No, you should. You should look into everything. I like to split atoms, man, and split that shit, right? Like, yeah, that's awesome. All right, fine. Well, and you guys wouldn't be willing to even try DMT or an ayahuasca session, huh?
Well, all you seem to be
Just
telling us.
just to see.
No, I'm actually open to having that experience at some point in my life. But what I will not do is decide that because similar stimulus give similar brains a similar experience, that there's therefore something beyond the reality that we can measure and touch.
Yeah, but we can only measure and touch less than 1% of reality, correct?
Why? Who says that?
Doesn't science say that? Aren't there multiple dimensions that are probably laid up on top of us? I mean, that's the newest physics that I'm reading of scientific literature. I don't know.
Well,
none of that physics that is still unfortunately unproven, such as string theory, none of that justifies anything from ayahuasca trips.
I guess I wasn't trying to tie those together. I'm just saying, just what is it, error of proof? You know, like if you know that 99% of science is still undiscovered, there's a pretty high possibility that there's shit down that we don't know about. And if many people have the same
as I
experience,
mentioned, I also gave the example of this. We've seen dreams that have stuff that's false. So we would say, hey, this method doesn't give reliable results. So instead of asking, hey, what if we take dreams and then add more drugs to them? Will that somehow give us more reliable results? That doesn't seem to be the case. When it comes to the reality of drug usage of this, it's not like the case I walk by a bar, see people coming out and saying, there's a bunch of people that are just full of wisdom right now. No, instead, I see a bunch of people getting into brawls with each other because of who knows what sorts of things their addled brains, not fully functioning, are coming to. When you remove the various functionalities of your brain, I don't see that as a way of making it more reliable. In fact,
what about enhancing it though? Wait, under hallucinogenics, it actually enhances many parts of the brain that are usually dormant and dominant, or less dominant.
That is actually like if you claimed, but not actually true. It's not actually been demonstrated on that.
MRIs, bro. What are you talking about? I'll give you MRI.
Guess what? MRIs tell you brains are doing weird things, not that you're actually better.
See what?
MRIs can see what's going on in the brain. There aren't any MRI studies that are actually going to be telling you that your perceptions are somehow greater, stronger, better. That has not actually been justified.
You see parts of the brain that are lit up during like REM sleep and other stages, and they're dealt with memory, and they know what the parts of those brain are typically used for. So when they light up, and they usually don't light up when they're sober, you can see more neural activity. So even mycelium, microdosing mycelium grows back neurons and creates more synapses. So like nothing.
All you are doing, Tree, all you are doing is affirming what I've been saying over and over again, is that similar stimuli give similar brains similar experiences.
Yes. Okay.
So,
yep.
So cool.
Boy. But okay, yeah. But the onus is kind of on you guys because there's still that 0.99% that is possible, and you guys can't prove that it's not.
Actually, it's not on us. If you're making a positive claim that somehow everyone else has escaped it, it's up to you to actually show it.
But not everyone has.
Here's how we could do it. Here's how we could actually do it.
In your Bible? Hold on, you said it's in your Bible?
I don't need the Bible. Tree, I don't need the Bible. What I can say is this. Here's a way that we can actually show that these sorts of things are helpful. So here's something similar to what actually they try to do with near-death experiences and claims that people are getting stuff from there. Go, or I shouldn't say you go. I don't want to actually recommend someone do something that could be potentially illegal, but in these sorts of...
kill myself?
No, absolutely
not. That's not what I'm saying. Is that what you're asking me to do?
Nope.
No. That's not where we're going.
You want me to kill myself?
No. Nope. We want you to stick around for quite a while, Tree. We want you around
to live for...
It's much easier to chat with you if you're alive.
Really? Will you guys chat with me? Can I come back on? Like maybe in the future, maybe you have a better question that's like more you guys believe that you could prove. Because I don't feel like you're proving supernatural is not real. And then you just told me to kill myself. That's so weird.
No, you, dude, you are absolutely getting the burden of proof incorrect. We've made no positive claims. Neither of us have said that the supernatural is not real. Neither of us have said that.
Okay.
And that's not actually even what I believe. It's entirely possible there's a supernatural.
Okay.
But what,
okay.
but what we were saying is no one has demonstrated to our satisfaction that it does exist. And until such time as it has been demonstrated to exist, it's in the world of things that are possible. And the world of things that are possible are not helpful for making predictions about future data.
Future data, but see, that's where I think you're wrong. Many people have talked about this. There's shamans that got like 70% of the things right.
Demonstrated. There's a difference between talk about
demonstrated. No, they wrote it down, and 70% of his things were proved correct. And they're like fucking American politics, all kinds of stuff.
They're things. Now we're getting into some really broad, unspecified things here. So here's the thing: we can't go by anonymous things, or I heard it from another guy. If we're saying you have a demonstrated way to show that all of science is wrong, you can't just go and say, "Hey, I heard it from another guy."
No, I'm not. These are books written by people. He went on record. Like in the public in the 1940s and 50s, and like 70% of his predictions came true. It's public. You know, you guys brought the Bible. This is documented. This isn't fiction. This is nonfiction.
Who is he?
You know, I gotta look it up. I'm sorry. Hold on. I hear a lot of stories. Let me look it up real quick. But I'm pretty sure it's an Alaskan.
Yeah, I hear a lot of stories too. I would at least like to get a citation on that. All right.
Yeah, you seem rather credulous.
I do.
Yes.
What do you mean by that? Like I feel like I'm lying.
I mean, you seem to be willing to take stories as data.
Well, homie, I didn't ever believe in religion, dog. I never believed in religion my entire life, ever. But I mean, I believed in other stuff, but I didn't believe it. But I'm not talking stuff. I'm sorry. We all get took here and there, and our family, we take on our family's beliefs. I'm telling you, you're going to like Carl Jung. It's shadow work and complexes. And he talks about archetypes, just like Joseph Campbell, okay? There's archetypes that everyone talks about throughout time, of the hero's journey, of the crone, the maiden.
And that does not demonstrate that there's a supernatural. That does not
No, of course not. But it does demonstrate that there is something, and people aren't as close as you think. There's actually, a lot of Africans have so much more genetics. They're more genetically diverse than most white people. Like, there's actually a lot of different genetics, and it's actually quite different. I mean, you have people with blue eyes, people with green eyes.
Genetics isn't a unit of measurement. You can't have more genetics and less genetics.
Besides the bad phrasing, it is true that there's more genetic diversity within the continent of Africa than other regions, because that's ultimately where humans came from, so there's been the greatest amount of time to diversify. Sure. And what does it have to do with anything you said?
That people aren't as similar. They are as similar, but I mean, everything has dreams. Even animals have dreams, right? So I'm just saying, I think you guys should dream bigger and better if you really want to get to.
So we should be more credulous and require less. We should be just accept on faith and accept on some people's sketchy attributions. That's something you aspire to. That's something you tell people that they should not be. They should be less skeptical.
No, be more skeptical. I want you to be like you guys. You guys got a fucking religion, thank God. But be more skeptical, but you should take more chances too. Don't fear the things that you don't know, because you'll never know them if you always fear them. And I'm telling you guys, do some DMT, do some ayahuasca, and then let's have this discussion.
I'm afraid of no truth.
What does that mean? You're afraid of never getting to the truth, dying a dirt napper?
No, I'm afraid. I'm not. There's nothing that is true that I'm afraid of. So the notion, your attribution. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You had a point. I'm sorry. I'm still looking up the shaman. I'm going to find it for you guys.
I think we may have to move on soon, but the point is, you seem to be saying that we're afraid of things that are true, when really that is the entire purpose of my current phase of my life, is to find things that are true. As many true things and as few false things as possible. They both have to go together. As many true things,
but even from the false,
as few false.
But even from the false, you learn what not to do and what not to look at, and how not to do it. So even with the false, you're learning what not to do. Like, you're not going to go back to Christendom, I doubt. You might go to another religion, but who knows? But there's 4,000 to go through. So I mean, take your pick. But I don't
think it's a good idea to learn something false, because you might learn something through it. I could have just gotten to the true thing in the first place. So let's cut out the middleman and get to the truth, rather than take the detour that we know takes us nearly off a cliff.
But you don't put your hand on a hot plate anymore, right? Because you burn your hand so many times. So you learn not to do that through fear and through fucking learning from your mistakes. And I've learned the greatest things through my mistakes. So usually you only want to do it once. But you know, some people do it 3, 4, forever. But you still learn from it, right? So it's a teacher, right? So it's not a bad thing and it's not a bad thing to shoot for the fucking moon. But when you fall short, you know, be prepared for that, but it doesn't matter because then you can shoot higher, right? You can keep on going towards the moon. How did we get to the moon? Do you guys believe in that? You guys don't believe in the moon landing, do you? Oh my God, you're Canadian. You don't believe in the moon landing? Or do you?
Of course we believe. Of course I believe in the moon landing. Yes. Are
Okay.
just out of curiosity? Are you recording this for some other purpose?
No, can I look at this online somehow? I never even heard about you guys until my homie told me about you, and I just fucking called, and I was like, let's go, bro, this is how you do it. So it was really nice talking to you guys, but can I look at this? What episode would this be on? Can I show people this? Am I going to be talking?
You are going to be talking, yes, and I now worry that maybe that was your point, but Tree, I think we're going to move on because I don't think that we're getting anywhere. You seem to be advocating for some for ideas that I don't think you can support. So,
well, you told me to kill myself, and I told you guys to do DMT. So I think we're fair. We're even now. It was very. Very nice.
We did not.
We did no such thing.
You didn't?
And I think we're going to be done. Goodbye. Yeah, don't put words in my mouth, especially something so terrible. Oh, gosh.
I'm open to the idea of hallucinogenics because it's an experience that I've not had in my life, and there's accumulating experiences is something that a human can often want to do in their life, and so people talk about bucket lists and everything. I don't know if that wouldn't be on my bucket list. I'm not against it, but I'm not going to. I'm not confident that I will be the first person in the world who can then document that into some science that can be applicable to other people's situations.
Yeah. And just also some quick notes. So you mentioned first, or Joseph Campbell came up and they brought up Carl Jung. Joseph Campbell explicitly builds on Jung. He says that right in the intro to Hero with a Thousand Faces. So there's like no distance between them. And here's the thing. Carl Jung is from basically a century ago. And psychology 100 years ago was nascent as a science. There's been some progress since then. And I don't want to speak for the psychological research community, but I think they're going to say they've moved on a bit from the method of Jung, where Jung is basically, cool dream, bro, I'm going to interpret the shit out of this and call it science. That's a somewhat terse way of putting Jung's research methods. Unfortunately, he was not doing careful experiments with or without DMT. Now, fortunately, we do have some other callers, and hopefully the amount of drugs necessary to get through them is minimal, but we will find out what the recommendations are. So how about we bring in Aria, she, her from Pennsylvania. She's an atheist and still trying to deconstruct some beliefs. Aria, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Hi. I want to start by just saying thanks to Paul. Your channel helped me a lot. I was also very into the dinosaurs on the Ark 4,000 years ago stuff. And so
I'm so glad you found your way out of the maze.
Well, thank you. But yeah, your work on specifically Answers in Genesis, and then also on the prophecy claims about the Bible, and a lot of your work on resurrection has been really helpful to me. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
And Aaron, I'm not
Aria,
with
I
your
do.
work.
But Aria, I would say, I appreciate those kind words. They could have been louder for everyone to hear because you're breaking up a little bit and you're a little bit quiet. So I don't know if there's a way for you to fix that a little.
Is this better? Is this better?
A little bit. You're a bit buzzy, but we'll do our best to work through it. But I guess enunciate as much as possible.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No
So,
trouble.
yeah, I've deconstructed a lot, and there's one thing that I am having trouble falsifying to my own satisfaction, and that is the notion that Calvinist God is real and I'm not elect.
Okay. So let's suppose for a minute that that's correct. Calvinist God is correct, and you're not elect. What could you do about that?
Oh, nothing. It's just a fear thing. I would like to put that fear to rest.
Oh, okay. So it's like a fear of hell kind of a thing?
Very much so. I think I was indoctrinated into the notion of hell in preschool. So.
Okay. So I think one thing you're probably not going to be able to do is convince yourself that Calvinism is true or false as a separate question, as long as you're still holding on to the notion that hell might be real and or that, there's a God who created the universe who, well, Calvinist God wouldn't matter if there was no hell. I think. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
can I clarify the
sure.
exact fear? Okay. Thank you. So hell was the first thing I kind of let go of believing in, and that gave me the freedom to go find out if dinosaurs were on the ark. So I encountered, so the next thing then was hell, because I realized I would give up eternity in heaven in a heartbeat if it meant nobody went to hell, and that I would consider it immoral to accept the notion of heaven if it meant other people would go to hell. And so I don't believe in hell, but I heard a Calvinist say that hell is going to seem immoral to you if you don't have God's Spirit explaining it to you in your heart. So I think the scenario that I would like to see if you guys could falsify for me is that the Calvinists are right and there is a God, and it's speaking specifically to them and only to them, making all of these things that clearly don't make sense to them. And it's not something I think is true, and I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of Calvinists in your chat telling me that I'm an idiot and don't understand it, but whatever.
So just so that we're on the same page, and just so the audience who may not know, what I don't want to give, I could give my quick version of Calvinism, but that may not accurately reflect what you're talking about. So when you say Calvinism in a sentence or two, what do you mean?
I mean that God in his, there's different ways they make sense of it, but the basic version that I'm worried about is God created the whole universe knowing in advance which people he was going to save, because humans are so depraved that we couldn't choose him of our own accord. So he has to specifically work in our hearts ahead of us being able to make a decision to call us, and he only does that for the elect or the chosen or the predestined, whatever word you would like to use. And then everybody else just goes to hell, and that is part of God's magnificent plan.
Right. And then your concern, if I'm remembering correctly, your concern is that someone has said to you, well, once you are burning in hell, you will think that you are in the right place. Or is that kind of... No,
I'm sorry. No. So they said, because I believe a Calvinist, I don't remember if this was a theologian I saw speaking or somebody I actually spoke to, but it was about the notion that the notion of hell is obviously horrific and unjust and unacceptable to our moral intuitions about what people deserve. And this person said, well, the notion of hell isn't going to make sense to you unless God is making it make sense for you. So basically, the fact that I find the idea of hell immoral means I'm not elect.
So to give a bit of an analogy here, this to me sounds like, to I guess maybe a political analogy. Trump will start making sense if you watch OAN 24 hours a day. And in that
That's
analogy,
a really good
things
analogy.
only start to make sense. Sorry?
That's a really good analogy.
Yeah, so ultimately, it only makes sense if you force yourself to make it make sense. And if that's the case, well, believe me, you can make anything make sense. After a while, Narnia is going to start making sense. And I'm pretty sure then the Narnia people will get into war with the Lord of the Rings people because of what they think makes the great ultimate absolute sense. And then we'll have Calvinist Lord of the Ringsists. And I'm trying to imagine what Numenor will look like in that theology. And I am here to see that on the next season of Amazon Prime. But I think the key thing is this. If the only way it can make sense is if you just will it to make sense, then you have to realize, well, I could do that for anything. And honestly, do you have any reason to feel compelled to make sense of it? Or did you just say, hey, by any reasonable intuition, a God that sends people to infinite torture is not even worthy of worship, but isn't even plausible to exist, considering how we know what we are, what we're made up of, and if there is anything that we would consider a good God, it would be better than that thing being imagined. If God is going to exist, just even theoretically, God is going to be so much more amazing than anything that we have ever imagined. So I'm going to say whatever John Calvin imagined centuries ago is far short of anything that's likely to be real.
That makes sense. I was wondering specifically if, since the two of you, Aron, you're a biblical scholar, is that correct?
I moonlight as one, so I do not have any acolytes that I can point, or accolades I can point to that shows yes, I have a degree in it. Here's what I will boast. I do have now 2 journal articles that have passed peer review that will be published next year, one for Old Testament, one for New Testament. But I do not want to say that makes me an accredited biblical scholar, just that I'm an advanced dilettante. That's probably the best way to put it.
That's really awesome. Congratulations.
I got to toot my horn.
Absolutely. Okay, so, and then Paul, I've seen a lot of your work and know that you know the Bible extremely well. So I was curious if there were verses that you could point to that would indicate why the Calvinist interpretation is invalid according to its own text.
Well, for that, I mean, I would definitely point to, well, I mean, there's so many debates, right? Like internal to Christianity that you can throw them any number of scholars, William Lane Craig or anybody fighting against Calvinism far more than they would take Bible verses from those of us who are too weak-willed to even understand, why hell is a good idea. That I'm not sure that throwing Bible verses at a Calvinist is necessarily going to.
Oh no, this is yeah. Sorry, I don't mean for me to debate anybody. Just for my own because part of my deconstruction was that I came to the conclusion that the most coherent version of Christianity was Calvinism. And then I realized, well, I think Calvinism's evil, so I'm clearly not elect. So, oh well, I may as well go find out the rest of it.
Well, I mean, weirdly, the most popular verse in the Bible, John 3:16, right? For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life, right? Like, it's not if they were called. It's not if God, picked them out. It's just doesn't matter who hears it. Whoever believes gets to have eternal life. For me, that is a go-to that was ultimately a defeater of any Calvinistic thoughts I ever had. I don't know, Aron, did you have a different?
I look a bit further. Just go back to Genesis 3. From dust you came, from dust you will return. So that seemed to throw out any notion of an afterlife, because in older forms of Judaism, there wasn't the idea of heaven and hell. I would say the biggest thing that makes any sort of theology not work is the fact that the source of the messages of the Bible is diverse. It's not of one source. It's not all from God. And so it fails that it doesn't have anything that the sophisticated term is univocality, that it comes from like one voice. You got many different voices, sometimes vehemently arguing against each other. So there's no way to get a theology that is coherent with everything within the Bible, because some parts of it are explicitly arguing with other parts. You have in the Gospel of Matthew, no part of the law will be put away until the end of the world. Not one jot, not one tittle will fall away until the end of everything. And then other parts, it's like, say, yeah, go have that pig. You can't say these two fit together except by sheer willpower. And I see that as a fundamental problem with all theologies, at least all systematic theologies. This book does not speak with one voice. It is many voices. And so it is going to be easy to find a proof text to get pretty much anything you want, especially if you're willing to strip it out of its original context. And that's the last 3,000 years of theology.
Sorry.
That's great. I'm glad you took that on board. I guess I was wondering, were you looking specifically ideas that the notion of the elect is problematic within Christianity?
Yeah. Again, I very only briefly subscribed to Reformed theology, and I'd argued it with other people when I was still fully a fundamentalist evangelical. But
okay. I'll throw two more at you.
Nervous.
Okay. Well, I'll throw two more at you. Just again, I don't ascribe to any of this anymore. I don't think that these books are legitimate books of the Bible anymore. All that kind of stuff, as you know. But if you're talking specifically, if I need to put my Jesus hat on and say that the notion of the elect is crazy, and I just pulled them up here. So 1 Timothy 2:3-4. This is good and pleases God our Savior, who wants all people to be saved and come to the knowledge of truth. And then also 2 Peter 3:9. The Lord is not slow in keeping his promise, as some understand slowness. Instead, he is patient with you, not wanting anyone to perish, but everyone to come to repentance. So again, those are just sort of some of the verses. But it's the Bible. I used to play a game on my early Discord server, was where people would throw things at me and say, "Hey, Paul, I'm going to give you a position, and we need you to find Bible verses that argue both for and against that position." And I was always successful in finding verses that either would, battle one way or the other. So, this proof texting idea, as Aaron just said, is kind of this problematic notion, because you could take those verses that I just gave you, John 3:16, 1 Timothy 2, and 2 Peter 3. They have counters, right, for those.
Yeah.
So if it's for yourself, those may mean something to you to say, well, the Bible kind of does say that God wants everyone to be saved. So picking and choosing a few, even biblically, seems problematic. But you'll be able to find the verses that they've used to invent this doctrine. So I'm hoping that you will go the more fundamental route that Aaron was pitching there, which was, let's just look and see if any of this can hold water at all. And I think you're on your way there. It sounds like.
Yes, the point that there really isn't a systematic theology that works perfectly with everything is really helpful. So thank you for that. And
there's
the
thousands of
are
denominations. The reason there's thousands of denominations is because none of them have come up with exactly that, right? Like that's why we need these.
Yeah. And then the verses are helpful too, just for my own use. So
yeah.
Thank you so much, both of you. This was really helpful.
We're glad we could help.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
I hope you'll call in again.
If I have more questions, I will. Thank you so much.
Please do.
Thanks. All right. All right. So, we did have another caller, but it looks like they had to drop.
Oh, okay.
Someone, I only saw what their message was. It was asking about what would happen if the speed of light were different, or if somehow it would change. So
Ooh.
I was going to get into my wheelhouse, so I'll try to give the so bonus question, bonus caller. Woo-hoo. All right. So what if the speed of light were different? And the question is, fundamentally, we don't know, because we have to ask the question: one, is it possible? Is there like some sort of like physics contradiction it leads to? Secondly, does it force any other constants to change along the way? So if we're just having the speed of light have its own free parameter and adjust it around, we could get all sorts of either really weird stuff to happen, or make it so life is absolutely impossible. So if we brought down the speed of light down to the speed of a bicycle, we could have all the effects of special relativity just going for a bike ride. And all of a sudden you get this wild time dilation. So you go for a bike ride and you come back and your house is decayed because you've been gone for 1,000 years. Weird stuff like that could start happening. On the other hand, though, if the speed of light were, say, greater, then from E equals mc squared, then in a, say, atomic fusion, even more energy is given off, and then the sun becomes so big and hot that it just destroys itself, and so life never emerges here on the Earth. So depends on how you want to change those variables, and do you want to just do it in a toy model and have really cool visual effects, or do you want to say, does the universe not even possibly exist? Or can we also change a whole bunch of other parameters so we can still stick around and see what happens? So there's a lot of unknowns there, and this is why science needs more funding.
Love it.
It is super chat time. All right. So, Paul, could you start us off?
I absolutely can. $10 from Taylor Made at 28. Thank you, Taylor. Taylor Made. What's up, guys? It's my 40th birthday. Happy birthday, Taylor. I'm excited to be sharing it with you and all the great people on the line. Paul, you should solve your coffee table dilemma with a cool Star Wars theme coffee table. Aaron, are you at all familiar with the whole coffee table dilemma that will come up undoubtedly in the super chats?
Unfortunately, I do not feel like I'm up on the lore.
That's quite all right. So my partner, Shannon Q, who's also a host on the line, she and I have a disagreement about whether there should be coffee tables in our home. I
remember this because I went on with Shannon before. And the answer,
I refuse to have one because it is yet another surface for clutter. And so that is my fundamental objection, although I have side objections now that I've lived for many decades now without coffee tables. It's more free to walk. There's bumping hazards. It's better for my dog. You can have impromptu dance parties in your living room. It's all these, I think, benefits aesthetically as well. So unfortunately, my primary problem, being the clutter, is not solved by it being a Star Wars themed table. So I'm going to say it's a good idea, Taylor, but perhaps not solving my real issue.
All right, and I'm going to have to say, unfortunately, Shannon is right. And your problem, Paul, is you're not drinking enough coffee, so you don't have enough reason for the coffee table.
No one has ever I have literally 2 cups of coffee that I've drank during our show. No one has ever accused me of not drinking enough coffee.
All right. Touche, sir. Touche. All right. So we got 20 euros coming in from Jordan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing correctly, but the euros makes me want to pronounce the J like a Y. So Jordan, I'm going to say, philosophy and physics. Is an infinite regress into the past impossible? And is it true that under B theory of time, an infinite regress wouldn't be a thing because every point in time would independently exist on its own? So, double question here, and I'm not going to speak overly confidently, but I don't see a necessary issue with an infinite regress, especially on B theory, because the entire infinity would exist all at one time. You don't have to traverse the infinity because there isn't some starting point that you've moved to and you've crossed an infinite number of things. If there's a starting point, that's always been something finite. But the whole shebang existed once.
But is your answer the same if you say, can there be an infinite regress of events?
Any event, we can always go back a further event or earlier time, I think. I don't necessarily see there being a problem there. And at the very least, I've also seen another philosopher by the name of Wes Morrison, if I'm remembering correctly, turning this argument on its head and basically showing, hey, under that, then we shouldn't expect an infinite future and undermine all those people talking about infinite heaven time and all that. So,
I agree. I agree with. Yes. I tend to be more.
When it comes to that sort of argument,
I tend to lie that there needs to, for our vision of time, that there needs to be a brute start. But I'm not a philosopher, so I'm not the right person to ask.
Yeah. Like I say, I don't have great confidence in it, but in the same way, I don't have a problem saying there isn't a smallest or most negative number. I don't see necessarily a problem with infinite regress.
Agree. £5, I think, from Jordan.
Well, that's euros.
Euros. Thank you. Yeah, no, pounds is a different symbol. Euros. Does the term universe only refer to the expanding space-time thing, or also to everything that is written within it, like matter? I will let you give your answer.
So this is actually somewhat complicated in that when you read books, especially for popular audiences, they will not be clear on which definition of universe they mean. Do they mean the observable universe? Do they mean all possible universes in like the multiverse? Do they just mean the things that are locally detectable? It's a little bit of a mess. So to me, the best way of putting it is we can talk about the observable universe because that's the thing that we can look at and describe. And what goes beyond that is the projections of what we can say about what's here. So in our observable universe, we do see that space-time is expanding. And of course, this always leads people to ask the question, well, what is it expanding into? And that is not a very, it's one of the problems talking about expanding space. And I think the better way of getting past that intuitional problem is imagine the expansion as the same way we talk about inflation in economics. Not that the universe is expanding in anything, but it basically costs you more dollars in terms of travel time to get to destinations.
So am I right or wrong or maybe neither, in my layperson creationist parlances, when I'm talking in that realm, to make a differentiation when I'm talking, and I'm sure, make sure I'm clear that say, when I'm saying universe, I mean our instantiation of space-time. And when I'm talking about the broader, I use the word cosmos. Is that a reasonable way for me to lay out what I'm talking about?
Reasonable, yes. Like I say, the only issue is that sometimes there are weird little subtleties where a paper might talk about the universe, but they're only talking about the observable universe. And in particular, I see this come up because of how either creationists or even more sophisticated philosophers will use some paper talking about the universe having like some finite existence in the past, but what they're talking about is the observable universe, and they can't be talking about anything outside of the observable realm because it's literally impossible. It's literally not observable.
Right. And obviously, I can't control how other people use the word. I like to say up front how I'm using it. And I think you've affirmed for me that as long as I'm doing that up front, I'm on okay grounds. So perfect.
All right, so we got $10 from Mr. Borikoa. I'm mispronouncing this. I apologize, sir. Mr. 10.
I think.
They're spelling it out for me.
Yep.
Borikoa roll. Roll the R a tiny bit. So Borikoa. So I can barely pronounce R's correctly. I had to literally have speech therapy to say the R correctly when I was in elementary school. So I'm recovering from being able to speak anything correctly. So, Borikoa, number 10. Here's the bit. Saturnalia films. The Hallmark Channel broadcasts them year-round. Hell, my local stores have been selling them since mid-September. So infuriating, I declare war! Mm-hmm. Well, I mentioned earlier in this broadcast, I've also been trying to maintain Christmas to post-October, and I have failed to even maintain that within my own home. So I fear the war is lost. I will keep fighting the good fight, but when it comes to the war on Christmas, Santa has got so much firepower. It's really hard to win.
10 Canadian from Nicasius. is energy as in quantum energy fields material and or natural?
Natural, yes. Material is very strongly related with energy. Again, we got that whole E equals MC squared stuff, and that's still also true in quantum field theory. Ultimately, though, like how much energy there is in a system is very much definitional. And there are some states where you can't actually even cleanly define what the energy is and talk about how it's being conserved. This actually comes up in general relativity, that it's actually hard to say energy is conserved in certain circumstances, that it's actually hard to calculate and talk about it in any clear way. So there are some complications, but generally, yes, energy is natural, it is material, it's materialistic, and if you get enough of it, it becomes a big whopping pile of material. So, $10 from Ericapedia. Maybe there is a God, because every single time I think, am I drinking too much or doing too much drugs? A tree comes along and convinces me I'm probably good. Well done, sir. Well done.
That's right. We have our caller today gives a whole new meaning to the look at the trees argument.
Yeah. If you listen to the trees, you might have to make new decisions.
All right, $5 from Monkey at a Typewriter, longtime supporter of the show. Thank you, Monkey at the Typewriter. As a psychedelic veteran, I recommend under no fucking circumstances do them with tree. Jesus. Also, I've done drugs, not an excuse for that. All right, well, I appreciate that. You're affirming my intuition. So we all like opinions that affirm our own. So that's great. Thank you.
So
Monkey.
now I have to wonder if Monkey is a fan of Blue Oyster Cult, because it reminds me of the song Veterans of the Psychic Wars. But maybe I'm showing my age if I'm bringing up BOC albums from the early 80s.
I loved that he thought that we were in our 30s. That was amazing. I think I'm the oldest host on this whole network. So yeah, it's pretty great.
All right, I think it's your turn.
Okay, $10. I'm not actually the oldest. I forgot what Aron. Anyway, $10 from the Raven 200. I studied Jung and his archetypes a few semesters ago, and will be doing again this semester. Unless whatever I'm studying of him is applied to creative writing, I find him unimpressive. Fair enough.
When it comes to creative writing, you're probably going to come across more Jacques Lacan. About the same time, a little bit after Jung, but French and even more difficult to understand. Ooh, we got $5 from Skeptics and Scoundrels, so both of them. It's peculiar. No one ever returns from a drug trip with a new, verifiable, and useful scientific fact. Here's what dark matter is. You're welcome. Yes, that's what I was going to try to ask for Tree to do. Go on a trip and come back with some verifiable knowledge. I'm remembering this from a different skit from the internet long ago. Some person just completely high off his ass, laying on the couch, doing marijuana, saying, "It's a mind enhancer." And then his mother shouting at it, "Then why aren't you fucking Einstein?"
We should get this Skeptics and Scoundrels fellow. We should get him on the show sometime.
Yeah, it's not a terrible idea.
Excuse me. $5 from Geminico6. I asked the lion in my wardrobe what he was doing in there, and he said, "Narnia business." I pre-laughed at that joke. I'm sorry.
No, it was good. It was good. It was good.
Yeah, the dad jokes are in your territory, but that's...
I believe these are the sorts of things that are supposed to be shared. Because I believe in universal punishment. I never said these are good jokes, by the way. That's not what I get paid for. All right, we got $5 from Aliciana Silverbow. Why do parents love BB-8 so much? Because he's a great role model. Good.
Do you know who BB-8 is?
Oh, extremely, yes.
Very good. Very good. Another $5 from Jaminico6. What do you call a cat that uses the litter box in the Purple Rain? Prince Cat's peeing.
All right. And we got another $5 from Geminic06. Why were the other droids hungry? Because BB ate all the food. This is a variation on why 7 the scariest number. 789. Yes.
That's right. $10 from the Raven 200. Be sure to consensually slap that like button's thick, plump, peachy, well-toned butt. Jimmy, go get turned into a newt and don't get better. Then take a pop-up power bomb by Kevin Owens. All right, this is a lot of advice from the Raven. We appreciate you, and definitely slap that like button. That's the thing YouTubers say, right?
Yeah. Slap it, poke it, smash it. Smash that. That's it. Yeah.
I'm not a very good YouTuber, apparently. Go for
it. You'll get there, kid. You'll get there. Mm-hmm. Just like me with my 200 subs. Okay. I don't even know what they're subbing for. Anyways, we got $10 from Erikapedia. I suggest a staging coffee table. Put a cardboard box in the middle of the room. And if there isn't a bunch of shit on top of it in the month, it passes QA and can move into production.
I suppose
that's good advice.
I suppose that's if there was a strong enough, but I'll just say I'll take that on board. That's a potential on ramp toward either proving or disproving my hypothesis. I'll grant that. Just me.
All right.
$5 from Alishana Silverbow. Aaron, are you familiar with a slower speed of light? It's a simple game that slows the speed of light so you can see the relativistic effects.
So simulations and things like that, or there's also a pretty awesome scene, though technically now not so sophisticated, from the original version of Cosmos with Carl Sagan, where they had a demonstration of what it would look like if you were riding a bike and the speed of light was now 20 miles per hour, or I think it was 20 kilometers per hour in that episode, something like that, on a bike or on a moped. And then here are the effects that you would see if you were going at then relativistic speeds and all the weird time dilation stuff that would happen. So I've seen things like that, and I think there's been other simulators that exist online to see just how weird stuff would get. I'll just also give one other weird thing, that if you get really close to the speed of light, and let's imagine you're in a spaceship and you're shooting off to some amazing star system far away, at extremely fast speeds, extremely close to the speed of light, you have all these weird effects of the light coming towards you being blue shifted, the light that's coming away from you is being red shifted, but also your field of vision gets scrunched towards the front. So quite literally, your entire field of vision, including for what's behind you, ends up in your forward field of vision as this tiny little circle of everything.
That's cool.
So, so don't do DAT. Just go 99.999% the speed of light. Scientifically verified.
Very good.
All right. $5 from Monkey at Typewriter. Paul. Never give in to the Philippines and uncultivated mass. Sorry, I totally misread that. I apologize. Never give in to the Philistines and uncultured masses. The value of walking space cannot, nay, shall not be undermined. Hashtag don't want to go around.
It's the counter coffee table argument. I agree. 1999 from 700 bees in a human suit. Love that name. That's great. Paul, would playing low bar pills clip stating he wants to lower the bar for evidence of God actually be poisoning the well, or would it be reminding people that Bill poisoned the well himself? So are you familiar with the clip they're talking about?
Yes.
So basically, for those in the audience, William Lane Craig at one point in a Q&A that apparently only I watched was he basically advocated that people should, because the consequences of Christianity are so grave, that rather than being more skeptical, we should become more credulous, less skeptical. Is that poisoning the well? It depends on how you use it. I think what the way I use it, and I guess you can tell me, Aaron, if I'm right or wrong about this. I use this whenever William Lane Craig puts up an affront that he is being skeptical when he looks at one conclusion or another. So if he categorizes himself as being skeptical, that is a clip I like to use to maybe demonstrate that he's being at least inconsistent. Do you think that is fair, or am I poisoning the well, as it were, just against Craig in general when I use that clip?
Well, it's at least fair if we're using it for Craig, because I remember that clip because you've used it a number of times, so it's pretty well burned into my memory, and basically saying the story of afterlife thanks to Jesus is just so incredible and wonderful that he wants it to be true, and so he's willing to basically lower the bar of skepticism because it's so wonderful if true. And I think that basically just shows fundamentally he's doing everything he can to show things are true rather than get to what's actually true. That's like as anti-skepticism as you can be. I want this to be true, therefore I will do what I can to believe it is true. It is so contrary to, say, Bayesian reasoning. Hey, the probability of this thing is low, but if it were true, it'd be awesome, therefore it's high. Nope, that's not how numbers work. So I have very little sympathy for Bill's position. I think it is encompasses so much of what's wrong with religious thinking generally.
And as you say, there's no transitive property. Like his saying that couldn't, you're right, doesn't apply to any other Christian in the world, because that's just his personal stance. So I appreciate that. Yeah. Swinzy,
all right. Yes, and we also appreciate the $5 from Jeff Cochran. So, I just learned about a 2022 comedy horror film titled The Coffee Table, and its plot is basically a cautionary table against buying a coffee table.
If this is true, I need to go find that film. I'm gonna look that up on IMDb later.
I don't think, though, even given the film, that this actually follows, because there's also an older, like, I think 10, 15-year-old film called Tire, about a tire that rolls around and I think actually kills people. And I don't think that argues against putting tires on cars.
So you think. All right. $10 from Justin Kidman. Love you both. I ran into someone that forced the Colam, as every effect has a cause in the universe. Do you think that the acausal events in QM tears this position apart? Jimmy Snow has a podcast. What do you think?
So I have heard. So it depends a lot on your interpretation of quantum mechanics, which then makes things difficult. So, for example, on the quote-unquote Copenhagen interpretations of quantum mechanics, and you have wave collapse, it looks completely random, non-caused, and what state it takes is completely indeterminable. So it kind of sort of looks like an uncaused effect. On the other hand, the only way you get that wave collapse is because of an interaction. So there is kind of a cause there. So I don't like that approach myself. It's not one I go to when it comes to arguing about the Colam. It feels a little bit too much. You need a very particular understanding of quantum mechanics, which may not be correct. And if your foundation of objecting depends itself on a 50-50 interpretation of quantum mechanics, I don't think it's a strong defeater for Craig's line of argumentation.
Back to your thing about whether there's an infinite regress or not. I guess the way simplistic me looks at this is that everyone seems to be arguing that there is some kind of brute fact that terminates infinite regress. That seems to be what, when I dig into all these arguments, everyone agrees that there is some brute fact that is uncaused. Christians or theists will say, well, no, there's God is uncaused. And I'm like, okay, great. So there's your exception. And I might posit that perhaps energy we don't know whether it was caused or not caused. So, that's a brute fact. But it doesn't matter. As long as you've got a brute fact, it's kind of a moot point. Anyway,
Yeah.
that may or may not make sense,
well,
but I'm a...
Oh, it does. I distinguish between two different kinds of infinite regresses there. One is the event infinite regress. This event was caused by this event, caused by this event, and you just keep going further back in time and go back and far as time infinitely far. That is where I don't see an issue. The infinite regress of like causes, like ontologically, what is like the most ultimate cause for things existing? I'm more feeling that has a plausible ceiling to it, but then at that point I'll just say, well, the great uncaused cause, the top of everything, is quantum fields, and we know those exist, so it does everything we need to do to explain the universe. So I don't then think we have to go then beyond that. So that's at least the way I tend to approach the regress problems.
Gotcha. All right, I think this one's me.
Yes.
70s are from Rowan Budai. Is it possible that there are things that are beyond human rationalization that would escape naturalism? For example, the explanatory gap in the hard problem of consciousness, or the merger of quantum mechanics and GR? I don't know what GR is.
Great general relativity.
Okay. Thoughts?
Possible, but we can't go from possible to an actual position. If there are things beyond our understanding, then we can't understand them and incorporate them into our models. So I think we're kind of stuck there, and the best we can do is try to make progress on what seem to be these hard problems, and fortunately, we have a history of making progress even on seemingly intractable things.
Cool.
All right, we got $10 from Brian Jones. Jacques Lacan, Jacques Lacan, Jacques Lacan, let me rock Jacques Lacan. So I'm probably misstating this because I feel like we're going for Amadeus, and I am not getting the rhythm of that song right at all. I apologize to all of Europe.
$10 from the Raven 200. I swore on the river Styx and on Odin's spear, Gungnir, long ago, that I would not let Christmas creep on me in October. I have held out quite well thus far. Don't give up hope, Aaron. All right, well, there's a personal success story on the war on Christmas, so we will use that as inspiration.
By Odin's beard, I shall succeed. But not by Odin's eye. He lost that a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. At least in
All right.
Marvel.
No, in the actual mythology. He loses an eye.
Oh, is it? Okay, there you go.
To gain wisdom. Yeah. On the other hand, I believe in Marvel there's also a giant floating eye of Odin that explains to Thor the creation of the universe and the Aesir after the first Ragnarok, because apparently that was completely cyclical. Strangely enough, I was looking at 1980 Thor comics for my own research related to the Star of Bethlehem, because they have their own explanation for that story in Thor. So don't, kids, read comic books. They'll inspire biblical research.
Amazing.
Maybe a little bit. It was actually kind of crazy. They had like a whole 10 comic series going through the entire Ring saga from Norse, Greco-Roman, or Greco-Norse mythology.
I have academically cited Life of Brian before, but I think you've one-upped me now by citing Thor comics. I think that's one up.
Oh, we're both one-upped because the Life of Brian became an entire academic conference with people like Bart Ehrman and Mark Goodacre.
That's exactly where I got it from. All right.
Right. Okay.
On you.
I think. Okay. Yes, mate. Yeah. So $4.99 from Homespun Covers. Paul, what if you had a pedestal that would only hold a coffee urn and 2 cups? Just trying to help. I'm somewhat of a problem solver, so say I.
But that is, again, there's no surface too small that it can't have clutter on it. People will put napkins. People will put pens. People will put things. People will put clutter on any horizontal surface. And I've yet to see exceptions to this. So,
well, I want to give him a chance. I want to give him a chance, so it's not just so say I want to say so say we all.
So say we all.
I don't know if that's allowed to be said at Skywalker Ranch.
No, not really. No. This one, me, I think.
Yeah.
$20 from Godfrey N. Good. Aloha. If nothing else, today's show illustrates that callers should understand that how you deliver your message could be as important as the message itself. Mahalo from a guy looking at a palm tree. Yeah, well, that's the superior tree to what we had earlier. No disparagement to tree, but I think palm trees are great. Yes, how you deliver the message is important.
Mm-hmm. All right, we got $9.99 from Brock Smith. Finally getting to watch live and just wanted to send some love to two of my favorite hosts. Enjoyed the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate very much.
And you should improve your taste in who you like as hosts, but that's all right. $5 from Geminic06. What did the coffee table say to the dining table? Drinks are on me tonight. Wow. Hashtag team coffee table. Well, I will give you props for that one. That was pretty good.
For me, that table joke kind of fell flat.
Wow. Wow.
I'm sorry. I just got to level with you.
Yikes.
All right.
I'm out of my depth.
All right. So let's instead take the $4.99 super chat from Poor Claire. Tree reminded me of that neighbor kid in Home Alone asking a bunch of questions to the airport van driver. Hashtag team coffee table. Hashtag team Shannon.
No love for me tonight.
It'll be all right.
It's all right. $5 from Ericapedia. I'm telling y'all, cardboard box, test coffee table, proof of concept. But cardboard boxes are so ugly. I don't know. Got to figure it out. But I get why this is a good. I get why this is a good scientific experiment. So I will take the notion on board.
I will also note that I've had actually rather positive experiences with cardboard boxes. I will give the what sounds like the pathetic example. When I was a kid for Christmas time, my brother got one of the, at that time, completely awesome Power Wheels rideable electric little cars.
Mm-hmm.
And I got an art kit and the box it came in. But I turned that box into a spaceship. So I'm sorry, but the box was awesome. You just need a little bit of artistic skill, of which I'm still lacking on. But Paul, I'm sure you can do something with the box.
Absolutely. And there's also I love boxes. I'm a huge fan of boxes. Love the Amazon. Love all that stuff. I was going to say we also have a cat, and cats. Pretty much any box we've ever had just gets filled with a cat very quickly too. So we'll have to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, $5 from Monkey to Type. Go ahead.
Oh no, this one's you for you.
Just $5 from Monkey to Typewriter. Don't listen to Ericapedia. That's just a gateway coffee table. You get that one, and then another. Before long, your whole floor is coffee tables. Good point. Good point, Monkey. That's right. It's
that solves the problem. Now
argument.
you got your dance space and you got your coffee tables.
Oh,
I see this as a win. All right. Now we got $5 from Mark Fenkopf. Blue. Paul. Wins the next Toast to Toast AM. We are in desperate need for more of the best show on the internet. It's almost Ghost to Ghost AM time, too. Mm-hmm.
I think Ghost to Ghost is going to be the next one. I think whatever the Friday is before Halloween, I believe, is when our next episode will be. And we will be celebrating Ghost to Ghost, absolutely. And it's not the best show on the internet. It's just the only show on the internet. So that's how we get away with it.
All right.
$5 from Ericapedia. My God, it's full of coffee tables. I love it. Well done,
If
Dave.
memory serves, in that last scene in 2001, I think there is at least a tea table. He's sitting at a dining table of some sort.
I think you're right.
Watch the whole. All right,
right.
I'm not going to bed tonight. I'm going to go and rewatch 2001 right now.
That's right. You can't just jump to the end scene either. You got to start at the start.
Yep, got to ease your way into it. Yep.
Although, you know what?
All right.
I've never seen clutter on a monolith. I will say that.
Thing is, I've also seen what it does to primitive monkey brains, and it can get pretty disastrous.
I'm just saying that might be the one exception to the flat surface without clutter. But, you know.
Mm-mm. Oh,
There you
and
go.
because this now reminds me, have you ever read the sequel to 2001?
I've read 2010. I've read 2060. There were several after that. But yes,
In that
absolutely.
case, then, I hoped then you knew about the science news today.
No, I didn't. What happened today?
So today, from Cape Canaveral, SpaceX launched the Europa Clipper, which is going to be
Ooh.
taking a trip to basically do this really long orbit around Europa and try to go through potentially plumes being spot out from Europa and amongst other tests to try to see are there any signs of life on Europa. And I
He's going
reminded
to
of that
destroy us all.
because and I reminded that
All these
because,
worlds are yours except Europa.
except Europa. Yep, exactly.
Ah,
So
gonna
that
destroy
was
us
the big
all.
news today. It was, yep. Oh, by the way, it was a successful launch, but it's going to take a while. I think it's going to be arriving in the early 2030s. So it's going to be a while until we get the science about Europa.
Okay.
So everyone sit
so
patiently.
we've got about 6 years until the monolith kills us all.
As far as I know, there are no advanced AIs on top of this particular probe. So I doubt it's going to do all the things that the movie suggested.
Okay, very good. Very good.
On the other hand, I've just remembered one other thing. Have you seen the movie version of 2010?
Yes, you got to keep your eyes on the spot of Jupiter, which was different, I think, in the film than.
Okay. The thing
Right?
that struck me is the very first time you see the main character from the film, it's the same actor from Jaws, and I swear he's in the exact
Yes.
same outfit, like the same shorts and shirt. It feels like he came
That's
from
funny.
one set to the other one.
That's funny. Yeah. No, a
Yeah.
great film. The 2010 is an underrated film for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
$5 from Justin Kidman. Thanks for that. Is this you? Me?
I don't know.
Doesn't
Go
matter.
ahead. Go ahead.
Thanks for that, Aaron. I agree that quantum mechanics isn't the best defeater of the Colam. I was just a fun rabbit hole, and I wanted a better explanation. And I think you got it, Justin. Got a better
All right.
explanation.
Okay. Now we got $10 again from the Raven 200. The movie you were thinking of, Aaron, was Rubber. It's hilarious. Oh, Rubber, not Tire. Thank you for that correction. I have heard of it. I've heard it's both ridiculous and awesome. So I want to take your advice and see it. Jimmy, go take a 3D by the Duffel Boys through a coffee table. Then battle Upper Moon 3, Akaza, on an infinite coffee table. If there's a reference there, I'm going to need some help because
I think I missed it too. Yeah, not always.
It
good
might
with
make
the
sense.
references.
It might make sense in the original Japanese.
Although you are kind of filling my wheelhouse, I'm getting most of your references, so we could hang out. $5 from Godfrey and Good. Paul, if it's okay to ask, what are your thoughts on the cancellation of The Acolyte? Will some of the characters continue on? Okay, so truth time. I have not seen Acolyte. The Acolyte is the very first Star Wars of any kind, including like weird Lego movies and whatever that I haven't watched because I can't bear to. But my thoughts on the cancellation of Acolyte, I think that it was canceled because for financial reasons. I think that basically the show ratings went down every single episode. Even the finale was way below what they normally do. The Acolyte was also incredibly expensive. I know people who worked on the Acolyte. I love them. I hope that I know that they will be shuffled on to the next project, so they'll be fine. But the budget for that was exceptionally high. From the clips I saw, I did not see where the money went on screen, frankly. And so I think Disney felt like their Star Wars dollars were going to be better spent on other series. I think a lot of the other stories about like whether it was too woke or all those other kind of things were just secondary to it did not resonate with a broad enough audience to continue making it, sadly. Even though I feel like it will hurt my feelings if and when I watch it. I will watch it, but I haven't yet.
Yeah, and from what I understand, in general, science fiction movies, TV series are more expensive to make, so they just do not have the margins that make them the big bucks for the studios. And
you can't, if it doesn't catch in season 1, they can't just hold on for 3 seasons and hope it finds an audience, right? It just doesn't work.
Yeah. And when it comes to expense, even when you don't think so, how much of the original Star Trek series have you watched?
All.
Okay. So here's a factoid that kind of blew my mind. The cost for one episode of Star Trek was the same budget for one season of Doctor Who at the same time.
Yes. Wow. Yeah.
And if you have watched
actually
the early episodes of Doctor Who, you can say, yeah, they had no budget.
Yeah, that was actually surprising to me. But yes, no, they definitely. Although Discovery and some of the newer shows, Picard, huge budgets, and they didn't always stick the landing either. So it's tough to tell.
I think this one's on me. So $5 from Jamnik06. After making love to a mortal woman, the superhero admitted, "I am Thor." The woman replied, "You think you're Thor? I can hardly fit down." Oh, this is kind of nice. I should have.
That was also well delivered. I will give you credit for that. That was also well delivered. Well, thank you for the writing it in. All right, $5 from Ericapedia. All these words are yours, except the coffee table. Attempt no landing there. Use it together. Use it in peace. Ericapedia, person after my own heart with that one. That one's great.
$5 from Monkey at Typewriter. I've never seen clutter on a monolith. You haven't been behind the scenes. One of those apes left the Starbucks cup up there. They had to fix in post.
I love that. That is a multi-cross reference. That's very good. Very good. Those, by the way, Game of Thrones tables are exceptionally cluttery. They always got junk on them. They're even the new one. They had to have a little ring with a ball. They were playing pool in it. It's weird. All right. $5 from Orange Laser. If everyone super chats, do you ever get to sign off? Just got to work, gonna rewind to the beginning and watch it now. I think no. I think we are contractually obligated as long as people give. I think what we do eventually we up it to $10 or more. It's,
What we're doing is we're testing the idea of the infinite regress.
That's right. The infinite super chat. Oh, all right.
Okay, now that does appear to be the end of the super chats, but that is definitely not the end of the line. So tomorrow we got a few other shows headed for you. So specifically for tomorrow, we have Chewed Gum, which is going to be with Eve Was Framed and Alyssa Ljub. Then on Wednesday we got The Hang Up with Matt and Jimmy. Thursday we got the Transatlantic Call-In Show with Ben and Josie. Then we got Friday and Saturday with the Cause I Wanna show. First one's going to be with Forrest and Owen. Next one will be with Matt. Sunday, we got 2 shows. We got the Sunday show with Matt and Paul. I think I've heard of this Paul guy before. You might have seen him around here. And on Sunday show night, it's Forrest and Eve Was Framed again. So that's what's coming up for you in the near future. And tonight, the reason we had any show work out well together, we had mods in the chat. We had Calicia and Monkey at Typewriter making sure things were going down well in the chat. The person who was making sure this got produced and screened properly was Amargan. And of course, it's been me, Aaron, and Paul. So Paul, thank you for hanging out with me tonight.
This is a great pleasure. I'm glad we finally got a chance to do our first show together.
And we're hoping for many more.
Many more, absolutely.
Again, big shout out to the crew, the mods, the screeners, making it possible. Check this out. We got patrons. They give us money, and they get their names here. You could be them too.